Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Studios. Today, Bridgestone Arena, Predators tonight against the Boston Bruins at 7 o'clock. Do we know, by the way, the weather situation, Ian, for today? Do we know if we're in the clear for the game tonight? Everybody will be okay? Or
I don't think we can say that for sure. But
because I saw that it was going to storm early and maybe tornado late, so I want everybody to be safe. And, I mean, I'm at the arena, so I'm okay. But I want everybody out there to make sure that they stay safe and whatnot in all of this. So, we got a lot to get to today. Barry Trotz, 5 o'clock, as always, here on a Tuesday live from Bridgestone Arena. Just letting everybody know that ahead of time, because sometimes, GM's talking, people don't know about it, but that's a different discussion for a different day. So, today, the Titans introduced L'Jarius Sneed. And, Ian, did I not put in today's grid that at 8 a.m. or whatever time it was that I sent it out, did I not put in there that L'Jarius Sneed is going to say his knees are okay?
Yes.
It says in there, it says, this was originally the 4:15 segment, it says, L'Jarius Sneed saying his knees are fine is probably the least surprising news of the day. So unsurprising that I put this take in the grid at 8 a.m. before he even said his knees were okay. So the Titans signed L'Jarius Sneed to a contract. I don't have a problem with a $76 million contract over 4 years. I don't have a problem with $55 million guaranteed if you're getting the L'Jarius Sneed that he was for the Kansas City Chiefs last year. And I don't care that L'Jarius Sneed did not make a Pro Bowl in Kansas City. I do not care that he wasn't an All-Pro. I don't care about that. Forget about it. Doesn't matter. What I care about is, will he be L'Jarius Sneed for the Tennessee Titans this year, next year, and the year after that? Because for $55 million guaranteed, you are committing to him for 3 years. L'Jarius Sneed was just on our midday show, and he was asked about the knees. Derek said, hey, tell the Titan fans, should they be worried about your knees? Here's what L'Jarius Sneed said.
Can you tell Titan fans, in regards to your knee, that they have nothing to worry about?
Titans fans, I'm here to tell you that you don't have anything to worry about from L'Jarius Sneed knee. L'Jarius Sneed is going to go out there every practice, every game, and give you my all. Go back and watch the film. I gave everybody my all, no matter what my knee condition that my knee was in. My knee is in great position. I know what to do to maintain my knee, or whatever I need to do. I got this end of my part. I'm just going out here and play ball. Just give Tennessee Titans fans and this organization all of me. Well, so the knee is not a problem.
Okay.
So they can start worrying about that.
L'Jarius Sneed says we don't need to worry about his knees anymore. So, hey, it's all fine. It's all good. No need to worry about it. Yeah, I remember when Caleb Farley got drafted, and he was asked about people that questioned him, and he invoked the Lord. I remember when Julio Jones was acquired, he told us his hamstrings were good too. So just because L'Jarius Sneed said, oh, my knees are fine, now all of a sudden I'm supposed to, okay, L'Jarius Sneed says his knees are fine. L'Jarius Sneed, I'm sure he's going to be okay. And so the one thing I was really fascinated about was how smart the Titans are about doing this. Because nobody else in the NFL was willing to do for L'Jarius Sneed what the Titans did. That's that 3 years guaranteed. And I know this because on Friday, TD sent me a tweet from, I believe it was, let's pull this up here, Pete Sweeney of Arrowhead Pride, who reported that Minnesota offered Kansas City a 2024 fourth and a 2025 third. Clearly a better deal than the Titans were offering, since all the Titans were offering was a 2025 third, and that the Vikings pulled out because of, quote, ultimately long-term health concerns made Minnesota withdraw. So Minnesota was about to give an infinitely better Minnesota, for whatever reason, said, no, we're good. We don't need those knees. We're okay. Trust me. Minnesota watches the tape too. Minnesota knows that L'Jarius Sneed is good too. So does Indianapolis. So does Chicago. So does New England. So does Arizona. So does everybody. But the Titans were the ones that were willing to pony up. And pony up did they ever, because I brought up on the show that I had talked to some people in the league, and I had said, hey, is there a way that, the guaranteed, Floyd used to always talk about, well, is it guaranteed for injury? Is it guaranteed for skill? Is it guaranteed for cap? Is it guaranteed? And it almost was annoying when somebody would say $40 million guaranteed, and I don't know what the $40 million guaranteed is. So I asked AJ, I said, so walk me through this. And they said, what you can do, and I brought this up last week on the show. I said, you can get a waiver signed on the knee. So we're guaranteeing you $55 million, but if the knee degrades because of whatever it might be, then the guarantees are off. If it's a shoulder, you get your money. If it's the abdomen, you get your money. If it's the tush, you get your money. But if it's the knee, then we get the money back. L'Jarius Sneed on our midday show today was asked about a waiver as to whether or not he signed one. Here's what he said.
Just from kind of a business standpoint, a contractual standpoint, did you agree to sign a waiver on the guarantees if the need does become an issue?
So repeat that, please.
So just in case the knees do become an issue, I know a lot of people are relieved to hear that you said that it won't be an issue, but did you agree to sign a waiver contractually if the knees do become an issue?
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't sign no waiver.
Or is the money fully guaranteed?
Yes.
Okay, so there is no waiver there, even though it is something the Titans could have done to protect themselves. And not only could the Titans have done it to protect themselves, if they had decided that they wanted to go that route, Sneed wouldn't have had a choice. Because the last thing that Sneed's camp could afford is for the trade to be called off and him have to go back to Kansas City. Because at that point, a league that is already skeptical about his knees, and it comes out that he fails a physical, or that they can't agree to a waiver over the knees, yeah, his agent's not going to let him do that. They're going to sign that waiver. And so the Titans didn't even get L'Jarius Sneed to sign that waiver. And I know that the Titans know of the waiver because apparently Vin Marino has done this in the past, and of course Vin Marino is still part of the hierarchy with the Titans now. And I hate the fact that I have to be the bad guy here, that I have to be the one that's just a little skeptical. I guarantee you our text line is going to be flooded with, Jared, he said his knee is okay. Why are you worried about the knee? You're just looking for something to be mad about. You're just two things. Number one, the reason I'm worried about the knee is because Minnesota was worried about the knee, because Indianapolis was worried about the knee, because everybody else around the league was worried about the knee, because Kansas City was never going to sign him to a long-term extension, probably because of the knee. That's the first reason why I'm skeptical. And if everybody else around the league is skeptical, don't you think I should be too? I look at it like this. If you're a bank, right? And somebody is looking for a mortgage, and they've gone to Regions, and Regions have said, yeah, we're not going to give you a loan. And then they go to Fifth Third, and Fifth Third says, yeah, we're not going to give you a loan. They go to Pinnacle, and Pinnacle's saying, we can't give you a loan. You go to Truist, and they won't give you a loan. And you're saying, I promise, I'm good for it. I'm good for the money. I promise. Do you think the Bank of Rand should give him a big loan that Truist and Regions and Fifth Third and Pinnacle and everybody else won't? Don't you think we should be a little skeptical here? We've lived through Caleb Farley. We've lived through Julio Jones. And so for all of a sudden it to be like, oh, he says he's okay, there's no worries there. Or as Pete K wrote last week at the owners' meetings, the Titans trainers talked to the Chiefs trainers. That was the gist of what Kaharski said. The Titans trainers talked to the Chiefs trainers. Yeah, I'm sure the Chiefs trainers, if there was something wrong, they'd say, oh, you don't want to trade for this guy? Uh-huh, exactly. The second reason why I'm bothered by the lack of a waiver here in this certain case is because it would have been the smart thing to do. Sneed may end up being a great player. I have no doubt that if you're getting the L'Jarius Sneed of last year, you got better. L'Jarius Sneed is a good ball player, but you got to protect yourself too, right? Like there has to be something in here where it's like, hey, we recognize how good you are. That's why we're giving you all this money. Like we want you because we recognize how good you are. But we need you to sign this because we have to protect ourselves that if those knees degrade after this upcoming season, then we can get out of the deal. And we can go get another corner so that Trey Avery doesn't have to be out on the field week 1 of 2025. Like we're going to give you $25 million or whatever it is in year 1. We're going to give you a bunch of money up front. But you got to meet us halfway here. And I hate it for you. It's not like he chose for his knees to be bad, reportedly. But it is what it is. And that would be the smart thing to do, and the Titans didn't do it. And so on one hand, I'm skeptical because everybody else in the league, I guess 31 other teams don't understand. But the Bank of Ran, they understand this guy's good for the money. And then the second reason was this was strategically the right thing to do, and they didn't do it. And so that bothers me. And it, quite frankly, should bother you. And if it doesn't bother you, you're just somebody who doesn't want to hear it. You're just somebody who puts their hand over their ears, la, 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 it's April, let me think good things about my team, let me not worry about these knees, and that's fine. But that's not going to do you any favors in October. That's not going to do you any favors. Year 3 of a contract where you've got $19 million that may or may not be able to get on the field, and you're trying to build a winner as you move into a new stadium. So, from this standpoint, it's easy to say, we got a good player, but nobody else, including reportedly Minnesota, who was willing to offer a better trade than you, trusted those knees. And not only did you trust the knees, but you trusted them implicitly. How could that go wrong? 615-737-1025. We're starting on that. 615-737-1025 if you want to weigh in here on the program. And again, I know Sneed says his knees are okay, but what else? Is he going to get up there and say, my knees are screwed up? So I have a story of that, by the way, that I want to share with you that has doomed the Titans in the past. And I will name the player that it doomed them on. And I'm not sure I've ever told this story on the radio. And Ian, honestly, I'm not sure I should tell this story. But I'm going to. And so we'll do that next. Stillman and Company, live from Bridgestone Arena, 615-737-1025. If you want to weigh in today, that's 615-737-1025. And we are giving away a pair of tickets for the Predators and the Blues later today in the show. So be listening for your opportunity to win those. Stillman and Company, 1025, 106 for the game.
The situation with the knees, I mean, you played plenty of snaps. You didn't miss any games. But how did you manage it last year, and how do you look to manage that going forward?
Oh man, yeah, ain't nothing wrong with my knee. I'm fine. You know, I played the whole season, and the years before that I played as well. You know, I had a couple of problems. You know, I had banged up knee before, but I'm good right now. Nothing is really wrong with my knee.
So it's not a situation that you have to manage going forward?
No, I know what to do with my knee. You know, I'm coming out here to play ball.
Okay, L'Jarius Sneed says he's fine. I don't think we need to, at that point, worry anything further. I mean, he says he's okay. But he said it. So I did promise a story that I heard years ago. So years ago, the Titans made a big free agent signing. Ian, did I tell you who this story was going to be about before we?
I don't think so.
So you have no idea who this is?
No.
So years ago, the Titans signed a free agent guard by the name of Andy Levitre. You remember Levitre?
I do, actually. Very big signing.
And how bad did he suck?
It was not a good signing.
Okay.
It did not work out well.
So the Titans signed Andy Levitre, I want to say in 2014.
Sounds about right.
And I know this because I was still on the radio in Louisville at the time. And somebody that I had worked with played football at Louisville and knew some people, and thus, through the people that he knew, he was friends with Andy Levitre. So the guy I was working with was friends with Andy Levitre. And I said to him, I'm like, dude, this guy and again, I'm a fan, and I'm on the radio in Louisville. So this guy we got from Buffalo, he sucks. Like, he's terrible. And my buddy told me, well, you know why that is, right? I said, because he stinks? He said, no. He says it's his knees. I said, what do you mean? He goes, I was talking to him one time, and he said, my knees are so bad that I got one contract in me. And once I get the money, like, I'll try, but there's no way that these knees will be able to get me to a third contract. I am just going for that second contract. That's what he told me. What were the reports about L'Jarius Sneed? L'Jarius Sneed wanted the most money in NFL history. Now, he didn't demand the most money in NFL history because he got less than the most money in NFL history. But he took a huge, fat paycheck, including a bunch of money up front and a signing bonus, as reported last week by Ian Rappaport. Even if L'Jarius Sneed's knees were bad, he wouldn't tell you. But I wouldn't be surprised if there's a lot more players out there. And I'm not saying that this is the case with Sneed. And I'm not saying I hope this is the case with Sneed, just like I didn't hope that Aaron Brewer stunk at center. I just knew he was going to. I hope this isn't the case with Sneed. Sneed's a great player. But again, like, this isn't unique to one guy, that they've busted their tush and just found a way to get on the field on Sundays so they can get that fat stinking contract, and then all of a sudden it's like, this one I'm not going to be able to make it this week, guys. The Titans signed a receiver by the name of David Givens to a 5-year contract. He played 5 games. I'm not saying that's going to happen here. But again, for the Titans to be the one team that just completely ignores this and doesn't even ask for a waiver and says, well, the Chiefs' medical staff said that they were okay, so if the Chiefs' medical staff says it's okay, then it must be okay. That's a little too much for me. I also love Sneed being like, check the tape. It's like, dude, we're not worried about what you did. We're worried about what you're going to do for the Titans. Those are two totally different things. And so, again, it's a huge risk they're taking, and I would have negotiated a waiver in there. I would have played the game with the Chiefs, and I would have said, hey, okay, the Chiefs trainers say it's okay, let's get it in for a physical. And I'd have told those doctors, I'd have said, if there is one speck there, we're going to sit down with them and try to hammer out a waiver. We're going to try to do that. Because what Sneed can't have, Floyd used to always talk about your reputation in the league. Reputations don't matter on Sundays. It does not matter on Sunday if you've got the reputation of being a bad guy or if you've got the reputation of being a bad player or if you're Jadeveon Clowney and everybody on TV thinks that you're freaking Lawrence Taylor. It doesn't matter. Either you're going to make the play or you don't make the play. It matters this time of the year. It matters during the draft when people just don't know. And so with that cloud hanging over Sneed's head, the Titans could go back to Sneed and say, hey, man, we got to get a waiver or else we're going to have to rescind the deal. And if we rescind the deal, you know there's not going to be a market for you because there wasn't much of one for you before that. And he'd have agreed to it, and that's a smart thing to do. Phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com at 615-737-1025. Kyle is going to kick us off today on Sneed. Thank you for calling and waiting. What's up, Kyle?
Hey, I got something on Sneed, but I want to bring up the Levitri thing. I'm glad you said that. I was just watching a Super Bowl replay of the Falcons and Patriots, and he was out there blocking the crap out of Dante Hightower. So he did make it to another contract.
No. He got traded from the Titans, and he did play in that Super Bowl. And if I remember correctly, Dante Hightower made the play of the game.
Oh, well, that wasn't on him, though. It was on Jake Matthews.
Okay.
But anyways, okay, Sneed. I text you as soon as I heard about that knees on your personal phone. Oh, I know what I need to do to get my knees right. He never said my knees are just fine. That's all you had to say. Everything he said sounded like he was in court so he could backtrack what he said. I'm skeptical, but I do believe we will get 2 or 3 years out of it. And I don't want to sound like a jerk, but he might be lying about that contract. Is there a way we could find out about that waiver if we could actually see if he did sign it or not?
I mean, it'd be pretty wild if he was lying about it.
I mean,
if it comes out, Kyle, thank you for your call. If it comes out that L'Jarius Sneed actually did sign a waiver over the knee and lied about it, I mean, that's a really bad first impression, right? That's a really bad story in April that's like, breaking news, the Titans, the crown jewel of their free agent haul, lied to everybody about his knees. And then, oh my God, then it becomes everything. If he misses a day of training camp, it's going to be the end of the world. Ben actually texted into the text line, asked the same thing, says, do we know if Sneed is actually telling the truth? It sounded like he avoided the question. So what it sounded like to me, when Caroline asks him the question about the knees, what it looks like to me is it looks like he's probably, because it sounded like he was on a speakerphone, he probably looked at somebody in the room for the thumbs up, the thumbs down, or whatever. And I mean, hey, whatever he decides to answer, says he didn't do it. One texter says, I just tuned in to desperately watch you flail about turning a great day for Rand Carthon into Sneed into something negative. Can I just say this? Today's not the great day, right? Like for some reason, we think when these guys get signed, and I used to do this all the time. And there will be some players that I really, really want that a team will trade for. I'll say, yes. But for me, what I like are kind of when it comes to signings and tradings and things like that, are the moves that signify that the team is headed in the direction that they should be headed in. So, for instance, we were all worried last season ahead of the hockey trade deadline that the Predators were going to go for it again because David Poile and John Hines were sure of it. And I remember I had just returned from Mexico, and I had just gotten back into Nashville. And the Predators on a Saturday, I think, had traded Nino Niederreiter to the Winnipeg Jets, signaling that, we got it. We're not very good. It's time to rebuild. And that, I was like, yes. On these aren't the days you celebrate. The days you celebrate are when those players are good for you. That's when you celebrate. Just like the city of Philadelphia booing Donovan McNabb when he was drafted because they didn't get Ricky Williams. Now, who looks smart there? So, today was not like a great day for Rand Carthon. Today was Tuesday for Rand Carthon. And then tomorrow will be Wednesday. It's just like the draft. You know, I always talk about this every year. When they draft a player and everybody in the room claps every time they make a pick, half those guys suck. Half those guys aren't any good. I mean, I saw the Cowboys last year when they drafted Mozzie Smith, and I saw just So, that one I'm not so sure I care about. 615-737-1025 is our phone number if you want to weigh in. 615-737-1025 here on the program. We'll get to some more of your phones on this. And let me say that I do have an overall takeaway from Sneed about his press conference outside of the knee. I'll just touch on that, and then we'll get right into your phones because a lot of you want to weigh in on this. Again, that number is 615-737-1025. Is your bracket not looking good? Well, don't fret. We have one final chance for you to win some great prizes with the 1025 The Game 4-Team Bracket Challenge. Go to theGameNashville.com/bracket challenge and fill out your 4-team bracket to compete to win prizes, including tickets to see Creed at Ascend Amphitheater on August 13th. The 1025 The Game Bracket Challenge brought to you by ESPN Bet Sportsbook, Twin Peaks, and Volunteer Hose and Gasket.
That trade, it took a little over a week to be official. What was the holdup there, and can you just kind of like take us through how that?
It was really logistics, because you get the trade done, and because he was franchised, it was the way you have to go about getting the contract executed, and all those things. And we literally left the next day, or maybe a day or two later, going to owners' meetings. And so we had other options that we could have done, but it was more of a logistical thing. It had nothing else to do with anything other than us not all being in the same spot, Kansas City not all being in the same spot. So it was more logistics than anything.
Okay, so that today, Rand Carthon asked, hey, what took you so long to get the deal done? I mean, a lot of Titan fans last week were like, and I did think originally maybe this could have been that waiver that they were trying to work out, I actually believe that. I believe that because he was on the franchise tag, he'd have to probably go back to Kansas City, probably sign something, then get traded. Maybe not have to go back to Kansas City, but have to sign something for Kansas City, and then Kansas City would have to trade, and then Kansas City, and I'm sure there's all kinds of logistics and everything else about, okay, well, Rand's going to be at the Johnny Joe Pro Day this day, and, Legarius has this going. So I actually believe, which is one of the very few things that I believe today coming from the Tennessee Titans. And trust me, when I say few, I mean few things I believe coming from the Tennessee Titans. Let me just say this on the Sneed front. Look, if the knee's fine, then great. But why do I have to assume that it's fine? I mean, you guys are the ones that do all the assuming. You guys are the people that assume that Anthony Ferkser can play tight end. You guys are the ones that assume that because Jeffrey Simmons had a torn ACL and he was fine, that Caleb Farley would be okay off of his back surgery. You guys are the one that thought that, oh, yeah, Mike Vrabel and Rand Carthon, the collaboration, that'll work. Not me. So, if history tells you anything, it should be that when Jared's skeptical about something, it's usually for a good reason. But if not, he's a pretty good player. And I'll give him that. Text her into the text line. And again, our phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Texter says, Kinston says, remember when the Dolphins wouldn't sign Drew Brees because of his shoulder and half the league wouldn't sign him either? Worked out fine for the Saints. Oh, okay. So because it worked out 18 years ago for the New Orleans Saints that Drew Brees' shoulder was okay, that L'Jarius Sneed's knees, you are convinced L'Jarius Sneed's knees are going to be a problem, are going to be totally fine because of what happened to Drew Brees, again, 18 years ago. Do you see how crazy that stuff sounds? Right? It's like, well, 18 years ago, some guy smoked cigarettes every day and he didn't get lung cancer. Okay. I beg you not to try that for yourself. Come on now. And that's the thing. To me, the reaction to this shouldn't be like, oh, Jared, oh, this is you're just the worst. You just want it. And that shouldn't be your reaction. That reaction tells me you're insecure about what it is that I'm talking about. Because again, in this case, if I'm right, we all lose. I lose if I'm right. Number one, this is my team. And number two, even though we're doing the best we've ever done as a radio show, and we crushed it with all the Vrabel and Rand Carthon drama and everything else, even though that's the case, I want my team to win. And I am a firm believer that business is better when the team is good. So I lose in this too. But you can get mad at me today. You're not going to be mad at me in October when Trey Avery's out there. Just like, again, all the times last year that you saw Aaron Brewer get dominated by some big fatty and you thought, man, Jared was probably right about that. And it happens all the time. It happens all the time that people, because everybody wants to believe something and then it becomes groupthink and then everybody thinks the same thing. And I'm just over here saying, like, man, I just tell you right now, I mean, if Minnesota withdrew their infinitely better offer, which is reported by the guy from Arrowhead Pride, and TD sent me that text on Friday, or that tweet on Friday, that Minnesota withdrew. I mean, shouldn't you be at least a little bit skeptical? Like, I hope this is a whole bunch of nothing, too. I really do. I mean, Caleb said, I had somebody in the YouTube chat yesterday that said that I had 0.0 idea that Alt is a sure thing, but also said he was sure that Brock Bowers will be a future Hall of Famer. I mean, look, for the most part, it's hard to tell whether or not these guys are going to be that dude. Every now and then there is a guy that's like, okay, that's going to be that dude. John Elway. I don't think any of these players in this are John Elway. LD says, sure, you guys, it's always you guys. I guess he's talking about me, you're never wrong. Have I been wrong with the Titans and all the kind of the controversial opinions over the last however many months? Right? Like I told you guys that the Vrabel and Carthon thing wasn't going to work. I remember when they started that, and I'm like, okay, this is stupid. I said, there's nobody in charge. I said, what's going to happen is the owner went to them. Like, Caroline was convinced. She was like, somebody's in charge, and they're not telling us. I said, no. I said, nobody's in charge. I said, what it is the owner said, I want you two to play nice. And they said, yes, ma'am. Because Rand had to say it to get the job, and Mike had to say it because what's he going to do, tell the owner no? So they had to say, yes, ma'am. And they did. And I said, that'll go great if they win. Because if they win, then it'll be, oh, Rand's doing a great job getting us the players. And Rand would say, oh, no, Mike's doing a great job coaching them. That's what it is. But if they lose, we're going to have problems. And everybody told me I was wrong. Remember that? Remember when Rand Carthon and Mike Vrabel sat down and said, oh, there's nothing wrong here. And Diana Rossini said the Titans are not firing Vrabel. They're not even going to trade him to New England. And I said the next day, I said, that's great, but the Titans have lied before. I'm not believing this. Bam, fired. I guess the last thing that I feel like I really got wrong was I guaranteed they would lose the week of the Falcons game. You know, when they traded Byard, that was that. But again, when we're talking about things like just philosophical things that I just think are bullcrap, and people talk themselves into. Again, I don't have a problem with Sneed, the player. I have a problem with the Titans having no protection as to if these knees are as bad as everybody else around the NFL seems to think they are, then what are you going to do about it? Like, if the budget is $270 million cash, the general manager cannot go to Amy and say, hey, Miss Amy, I know that it's 2025 now or 2026 now, and, we need another $22 million because Legarius's knees are so bad that, well, he's got to use a walker to get around the facility, and he's probably not going to play this year, and if not, we're going to be stuck with Trey Avery at corner for the 7th year in a row. She's not going to want to hear that. Just like, I'm sure, and I like John Robinson, but when John Robinson drafted Caleb Farley, the next day at 2 o'clock, I came on the air, and I compared it to a buddy of mine who is a crypto bro. I love him, but he is a crypto bro. And he was telling me, you got to get this coin, and you got to get, well, he's a Bitcoin guy, but you got to get Bitcoin, and then, oh, you got to get this coin, and you got to get that coin. And I'm like, why? Well, it's just a great investment. What's it do? Well, it's just people trade it and then it goes higher. Okay. I'll stick with the stock market and real estate, and if you have a private island, hopefully you'll let me come visit it one day. But that's how I felt when John Robinson drafted Caleb Farley, because it was like, dude, we got the best corner with the 21st pick. I'm like, nobody else around the league wanted him. And when Minnesota takes a better offer off the table because of the knees, that's a huge red flag. So don't be getting mad at me. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. One texter says, Joe says that I should be embarrassed for blaming Rick Barnes. First of all, Rick Barnes could put 4 guys out on the court, and Joe Rexrode would never blame him. Secondly, what happened this morning when they had the Rex rant was Robbie tweeted out, tune in now for the Rex rant. And I knew it was going to be about me. So I immediately went to YouTube and I put on the live stream and I watched Joe's face turn into a red tomato. And even though Joe did the one thing that I hate the most, which is when people accuse me of manufacturing takes, which is just not true. Like the things I say, I believe. When I, whatever. As much as I could be mad about that, the fact that his face was as bright red and plump like a pumpkin, I mean, I couldn't get over it. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. Ran asked about something very important today. Had a little chuckle. We'll get to that coming up next here on the program. Let's talk about Window Nation. That's right. I love Window Nation. I trust Window Nation, and I'm not skeptical of Window Nation like I'm skeptical of others because I had Window Nation out to my home. And I told Window Nation, I said, hey, check my windows and let me know which ones I need replaced. And I figured I was like, they're going to come to me and they're definitely going to want to replace windows because they say they have the best windows. And so if they've got the best windows, or at least they're saying that they have the best windows, they'll tell me that my windows are no good and their windows are bad, or their windows are the best. They came to me and said, your windows are good. You don't need them. I said, really? They said, yeah. I said, so you drove all the way out here to my home, probably spent 2 hours at my home, looking at all the windows, and you don't think I need to replace a single window? And they said, yeah. And I said right then and there, I knew this was a trustable company. And that's why I love Window Nation. And with April, if your windows won't open for fresh air or seal tight to keep out pollen and bugs, and I'm a big pollen person. I've been taking my antihistamines for almost 2 months now. Then call Window Nation. Get those windows fixed. And it's more affordable than you think because right now, for every 2 windows you'll buy, you'll get 2 windows free. There is no limit to how much you could save. Plus, you could save even more with no interest or payments for 24 months. Again, for every 2 windows you'll buy, you'll get 2 free, no interest, no payments for 24 months. Don't miss out. Call 866-90NATION or visit windownation.com. Again, that's windownation.com to schedule your free in-home estimate.
Is your starting right tackle on the roster right now? Is your starting left tackle in the draft?
We'll answer draft questions at a later date because, again, this is more about free agency. And to say is our starting right tackle, we got more than 5 offensive linemen on the roster, so we can roll out any 5 and call them starters if you want to at this point. But we're gonna, like I just told TD, we're gonna continue to look to bolster up front. We've added weapons around Will. Still got to be able to protect him. Got 2 good backs out of backfield that can make explosive plays. So we want to continue to balance this thing out, and make this a balanced football team.
There you go, Rand Carthon. Hey, are you getting your left tackle in the draft and the right tackle in free agency? I'm not here to talk about draft questions today. Well, I mean, it's not like he's asking you about the depth of the draft. It's not like he's asking you about individual prospects. He's saying, hey, so left tackle, like, is that in the draft, right tackle? And then Rand's like, I mean, we could roll 5 guys out there today and they'd be starters. Ha, 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 ha. I don't know about you, but I don't find the offensive line a laughing matter anymore. Not even the jokes about it. You know how when you go to the airport and they say, do not, under any circumstances, joke about TSA safety. Like, you can't go into the airport and make a joke when you're putting your luggage through there and say, yeah, haha, don't find my bomb in there. That's no, sir, step aside right now. They do not put up with that. Well, I've decided that I don't put up with any joking about the offensive line. Now, I think the left tackle probably is in the draft, and the right tackle, who freaking knows? Corey said, is he on the roster? And Rand completely didn't answer the question, which makes me a little nervous too. But again, I just want everybody out there to know, offensive line is no longer a joking matter. And it shouldn't be a joking matter because we have watched bad offensive lines for the last 2 years absolutely tank what could be otherwise decent football seasons. And I don't want to do that anymore. Okay, I want good seasons. I want to build this young quarterback into a successful quarterback. And you're not going to do that taking 5 guys on this team right now and putting them out there. If the Titans had to play today, again, using we could put 5 guys out there and be starters. Using that logic, what are we looking at here? PT at left tackle, Skoronski at left guard, because God forbid we ever play Skoronski at tackle. PT at left tackle, Skoronski at left guard, Cushenberry at center, Brunskill at right guard. No. Excuse me. Duncan at left tackle, Skoronski at left guard, Cushenberry at center, Brunskill at right guard, and Nicholas Petit-Frere, a.k.a. PT at RT. No, thank you. Dylan in Antioch is up next here on our program. Thank you for waiting. Go ahead, Dylan.
Hey, Jared. Yeah, I'm starting a new job tomorrow. I won't be able to call in as much. So
no! Congratulations, though, by the way.
Oh, thank you. But, yeah, I just wanted to get a call in before, maybe a couple months training and all that. But, so the Caleb Farley thing's a lot different. Chris Sanders was screaming on the station that you cannot sign or draft Caleb Farley because of the back. I think the back's a little different. And I know you have a rule that, you can't get anyone in trouble for something they haven't done yet. Sounds like you're trying to get Wren and L'Jarius Sneed in trouble for something they haven't done.
Well, I'm not trying to get L'Jarius Sneed in trouble for anything. L'Jarius Sneed took a contract that was offered him. I don't have a problem with that. The problem with Wren is what has happened, which is they didn't get the waiver.
Well, so we don't know that, and that's another thing I wanted to hit on. So when Caroline asked him the question earlier, he said, I don't know what you're talking about. He didn't say no. So he may be, his agent is probably looking at him like, just kind of, act like you don't know what she's talking about. So we don't know if that's technically, so he hasn't denied it. He said, I don't know what you're talking about. So
No. She was pretty, I think, pretty on him about, hey, man, and he was like, I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't sign any waiver.
Well, so if he is lying, is that really a big deal? I mean, these contract facts are just so blurry all the time. Even if he is lying, I don't think that's a big deal.
So, again, if he's lying, then I don't think that it's a big deal to then the Titans did it right. Like what I'm hammering the Titans for not doing, then they did it right, which would be a good thing. But then, your corner just got up there and lied in front of everybody. It's probably not the best way to, when you start your job tomorrow, it probably won't be best on day one to go in there and lie to people.
True. Yeah, it may not be a good look, but I mean, if it comes out later, it's going to make Rand Carthon look smarter. And I mean, what is Steve
Sure,
going to say?
but that's a big,
yeah, my knee's bad, so I signed a waiver. He's not going to say that.
Sure, but so if he did, I mean, the Titans, and I appreciate calling them.
All right, thanks.
I don't want to throw the Titans under the bus here, even though I do think that in this particular case, they kind of deserve it. That question probably about the waiver. And I think Caroline should have asked it. I'm glad she did. I'm glad somebody asked it. But that probably should have been for Rand Carthon. But, we'll leave that as it is for right now. One texter says, don't worry about Sneed's knees. He must have passed Chad Brinker's injury prediction model. Oh, my God. You're right. And here's what's crazy. The Minnesota general manager, again, the one that reportedly pulled out of the Sneed sweepstakes, the Sneed sweepstakes, apparently he is an analytics guy. Like, he is the analytics guru. He was the analytic guy in San Francisco that got a GM job. He is an analytic guy. Rand told the story when he got hired about Elijah Mitchell that he, the analytic guy who's now the GM in Minnesota, went to Rand, who was the director of college scouting or personnel or something like that, who then went to Kyle Shanahan and said, hey, the analytics and the tape say the same thing. Elijah Mitchell's good. And I guess his injury model says, no, we got to pull out of Sneed. But Chad's injury model, the Curing Cancer AI model, that is the one that was perfect. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025 here on our program here for Stillman and Company. Coming up next, how about that women's hoops last night? How about that game last night? We'll do that next. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. That's right, Bridgestone Arena Predators tonight taking on the Boston Bruins, 7 o'clock right here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. So, how about that women's basketball game last night? Ian, did you watch?
No, not really.
You didn't watch the women's basketball game last night?
I just saw some clips on the Twitter.
Oh, my God.
I know.
Ian, what are you doing?
I should have let the 4-year-old May. She would have. She might have enjoyed it. I don't know. Watching the chicks ball out. But no, I missed it. Just bad timing.
Ian. Anywho, last night after the game or after the show was over, boom, the game of the year. Maybe in all of college basketball, but definitely women's basketball. Because in college basketball, let's not kid ourselves, Connecticut's steamrolling everybody by 25 points. It's almost like men's basketball has become women's basketball, where Connecticut just beats everybody by 25 every game and moves on. But last night was the game of the year, the rematch of the national championship game with Caitlyn Clark, the greatest women's basketball player ever, against LSU, the team that beat her, and the team that taunted her. People are getting way too in over their skis about all the hate and the vitriol towards LSU. I'm like, they're the bad guy. Angel Reese is the bad guy. LSU, they are the antagonist to this story. Caitlyn Clark is the protagonist. So in this case, she's Rocky, and LSU and Angel Reese, that's Clubber Lang or Apollo Creed. That's what we're talking about here. And Caitlyn Clark did not disappoint. And as I watched that game last night, I mean, it reminds me, because all the other 4 girls on Iowa stink. So it is Caitlyn Clark and 4 other people against the biggest, baddest, meanest team that money can buy at LSU with the meanest coach in the league. And she smoked them. And she was hitting from half court, and she was just going right by people, and she was, trying passes that, like, they were almost like Magic Johnson passes last night. And it hit me yesterday watching the game. That is because with this kind of Angel Reese, Caitlyn Clark rivalry, there's kind of like some Larry and Magic to it, where Larry and Magic met in the championship in college, Indiana State, Michigan State, and then obviously had that great rivalry in the 80s in the NBA. But this is different. Because as I watched last night, I said to myself, she's not Larry Bird or Magic Johnson. She's Michael Jordan. And I know Max Hers says he changes the station every time I talk about Michael Jordan. But that's because kids at the age of Max, I think Max is what, 28, Ian?
Younger than that, I think.
Okay. He doesn't remember Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan hasn't played basketball, real basketball. When he was with the Wizards, we don't count that. Michael Jordan has not played basketball at the high level for 25 years. So, man, he doesn't know Michael Jordan. But if you're my age, or you're Ian's age, or you're anybody older than me's age, you remember Michael Jordan. In the biggest games, Michael found a way. Michael was unguardable. That was the difference between him and everybody else. You could not stop Michael Jordan. What, you think you're going to put somebody on him that he can't shoot over? Doesn't matter. Michael's so athletic, he'll jump up over the guy and shoot. You think that you're going to put somebody that's got some size on Michael? He'll go right around him, go right to the basket, and dunk on him. You think you're going to just, okay, let's put somebody who's small on Michael? He'll just shoot right over him. Doesn't matter. Michael could get anywhere he wanted to go on the floor. Michael could get anywhere he needed to be, and he could get up and put the ball in the hoop. And Caitlyn Clark last night was the same way. Now, I don't feel bad for that Haley Van Lith who got cooked last night because, well, I don't think much of that Haley Van Lith who got cooked last night. But, man, what an honor it was to watch Caitlyn Clark play. She is the greatest women's basketball player of all time. And I feel like I am qualified enough to be able to say this. because I know there were a lot of great players before her, right? Lisa Leslie and Candace Parker and Maya Moore and Brianna Stewart and all these other players. And they might be better than her right now, that if she gets on the court in the WNBA, she may not go right away and drop 45 a game. But as far as what makes somebody the greatest, that's her. Who shows up in the biggest games? Her. Who always has the ball in her hand in the biggest moment? Her. Who hits the big shots? Everybody was watching last night. Everybody knew there were no other sports on TV last night worth watching. This was the game of the year. This might be, and I don't know, I haven't seen the ratings. I don't know if they've put them out there on Twitter or not. This has to be one of the highest rated women's basketball games ever. If not the highest rated women's basketball game ever. And she dominated, baby. I mean, there's nothing she can't do. I was talking to somebody about it at the gym today. I said, you can't put somebody big on her. She'll go right around them. You can't put Lil Van Lith on her. She'll just shoot right over her. I mean, Van Lith is not a good defensive player. I don't know what Kim Mulkey was thinking last night. But Van Lith, I think Shannon Sharp said today, she's short, she's slow, and she was sick. Now, the sick thing, I'm going to just say that was an excuse when it comes to Van Lith, because a couple years ago, when she was at Louisville, she lost in the Final Four, and I had made my way, to the team suite, and I was grabbing a couple of waters, and I saw Van Lith, and I mean, she was blaming everybody but herself. And so the whole she was sick, okay, whatever, I don't care about that. I mean, when I saw Caitlyn Clark do what she did last night, I had to call my dad. I'm like, are you watching this women's basketball game? And he's like, no. I said, she is hitting from half court right now. I said, she is like Michael Jordan. She is unconscious with the way she's dominating out there. And I think it's good for women's basketball to have a little bit of a rivalry here. See, the thing about getting people to care about something is that you can't force people to care about something. You can't force them. What happens is like all these teams and all these leagues and everything else, they're like, man, I wish ESPN would talk about us. And it's like, ESPN only talks about the things that they think people will turn on the TV and want to hear about. That's why ESPN doesn't talk about baseball, because they don't think that if they sit there and have a debate about the Texas Rangers, they don't think that all of a sudden, like, people are going to tune in, or, they're like, oh, Texas Ranger talk, click. So what you have to do is you have to make whatever it is that you're doing compelling enough for people to want to follow it. And Caitlyn Clark is so good that if you didn't watch last night, if you're like Ian, you missed out. You know what I thought about yesterday watching Caitlyn Clark? And I hope women's basketball is here to stay. And I think women's basketball has become like Major League Baseball. And I think college baseball has kind of become the same way. If your team is good, then you care. So if you are a Mississippi State Bulldog fan and you root for Mississippi State in basketball and football, then you'll care about them in baseball and women's basketball too. I mean, there's not a lot of people that are sitting around, like the women's Final Fours this weekend, they're like, what do you think? UConn, NC State, those kind of. I heard Robbie today say like, oh, NC State, they don't have a chance against South Carolina. I'm like, NC State's really good. Like, NC State is awesome. I wouldn't say they don't have a shot. But again, people don't watch it like that unless you're an NC State fan. Caitlyn Clark is like the McGuire-Sosa home run race in '98 where you had to watch. I mean, I remember Fox used to dump out of network television to go to a random Sosa or McGuire at bat. It was like, welcome those of you watching That 70s Show, but we're here in St. Louis where Mark McGuire is going for home run 59. Ball one. Ball two. Fouled back. Pop up to third. Okay, move on. Back to That 70s Show. It's like Michael Phelps in swimming. How many of you people will turn on the TV in order to watch, whatever it might be, The swim, qualifying, blah, 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 whatever. Not many. How many of you watched Michael Phelps in the Olympics when he swam? All of us. That's what she is. She is box office, just like Michael Jordan. She is the Michael Jordan of women's basketball. And I am sure that when Michael played, and again, I was a kid, so I didn't follow all the water cooler debates and things like that. I'm sure there were arguments about, well, Michael's not that good. This guy's better than Michael. I'm sure there was talk about, oh, Magic's better than Michael. Oh, Larry's better than Michael. Oh, this one's better than Michael. Oh, Clyde Drexler's better than Michael. But in the end, there was Michael. And in the end, with women's basketball, there's her. She is the story. And what a freaking game last night. She's hitting from half court. So then there's the other side of this, right? The Clubber Lang of the discussion, LSU. And apparently, if you don't like LSU, and let me just say this right now, I don't like LSU. I was rooting like hell for them to lose. But apparently, if you were rooting against LSU, you might be racist. At least according to Twitter and everybody getting mad, and then the players and the hate the players were talking about after the game. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. I do want to give a shout out to our friends over at Eurostone, because they came in and they went right to work. Eurostone, you know, they do the countertops and everything else, and I mean, they do it perfectly. The big supporters of the Predators. And Eurostone came into our station and redid our bathrooms and our kitchen areas, and I mean, it was fabulous. I mean, Eurostone is awesome. If you want to trust your home or business to Eurostone, do it. And let me just tell you this when it comes to Eurostone. Eurostone took care of my home. One of my rental properties, you know, I had an issue with a granite countertop or something, and I was at the Preds game, and my guys at Eurostone were there, and I just told them, I was like, yeah, I got this issue, whatever. They're like, we'll take care of it. And I said, well, you don't have to do that. You know, no. Just let us know. And so about a day later, I called the rental company, and I said that, I go, hey, Eurostone said that they were going to try to find a time to get it done, and the rental company told me, oh, no, they've already done it. I said, they've already done it? They're like, yeah. I'm like, really? They're like, yeah. Eurostone is fast. So our kitchen, our bathrooms, they look fantastic. So again, I just want to thank our friends at Eurostone. They did just a fabulous job. They've done a great job for me, and they're the best. So again, that's Eurostone. If you're, countertops, whatever it might be, Eurostone, let them take great care of you. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
I'm unapologetically me. I'm going to always leave that mark and be who I am and stand on that. And hopefully the little girls that look up to me, and hopefully I give them some type of inspiration that, hopefully it's not this hard and all the things that come at you, but keep being who you are. Keep waking up every day. Keep being motivated, staying who you are, staying 10 toes, don't back down, and just be confident.
There you go. That was Angel Reese. And so there has been a lot of talk over like the last 3 weeks. I'd say the story of the women's tournament, outside of Caitlyn Clark just dominating like Michael Jordan, I'd say the story is LSU, right? Kim Mulkey gets up there and she goes after the Washington Post before their second round game about, I got the best law firm and I'm going to sue this sleazy reporter who's been asking for an interview for 2 years and then gave me 48 hours after asking for 2 years, and so I'm going to sue him. By the way, I read the story. It was an expose on a crazy coach, and we kind of already knew she was crazy, right? I remember when the day LSU hired Kim Mulkey from Baylor, I told Caroline, I said, congratulations. I said, you're going to win. But you ain't going to like how you win. But now there's become this whole sentiment after the game last night. LSU played the victim card, right? There's Angel Reese. For all the girls out there, good. I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with Angel Reese. I thought it was kind of classless last year when she was like rubbing her finger in Caitlyn Clark's face about her ring. But hey, you talk to talk, you can walk to walk. Guess what? Couldn't walk it last night. But that's just what LSU does, man. The LSU women's basketball team, and I don't want to put this on football or men's basketball or baseball because I don't know if they have this problem, but the LSU women's basketball team, they are the definition of dish it, but can't take it. Last night after the game, Angel Reese is in tears, and Floje Johnson and Haley Van Lith are up there, and they're just telling people, oh yeah, just the vitriol and the hate and everything that I've seen come this woman's way, and the fact that you guys, you media, you guys aren't going to break her. I'm like, well, you guys are going on a 2-minute rant about how the media is not going to break her while she's sitting there in between you guys in tears. I'd say the words don't necessarily match the actions. And so yet, it's kind of become this whole, like, if you're rooting against LSU, you're a racist thing, and I think that's ridiculous. Because I was rooting against LSU, and I'm not racist. And the reason I was rooting against LSU was because I find the coach obnoxious. I always have, and I think she's the sorest loser in the sport. See, I remember when Danielle Adams was at Texas A&M and en route to a national championship knocked off Brittany Griner and Baylor in the Elite Eight, and Kim Mulkey went crazy after the game. That's just who she is. So when Kim Mulkey, threatens to sue the Washington Post out of nowhere on a story that I probably wouldn't have even read if she hadn't made such a big deal about it, which made me think, oh, God, I got to see what's in this. She's just obnoxious. It's just who she is. And the other thing I enjoyed about last night was I so enjoyed watching Haley Van Lith get absolutely cooked by Caitlyn Clark like she was Trey Avery. Because Van Lith is a total front runner. And she was at Louisville, and when she was at Louisville, they propped her up to be the star player. It used to drive me crazy. I used to text with former players and people there. I'm like, TV. You know when I talk about a TV player? Like Julio Jones or Clowney or one of these, TV says, oh my God, if they add this player. Van Lith is a TV player. She went to the Mamba Academy and played for Kobe. And so because of that, everybody just made this huge deal every time she was out there, and they treated her like past Louisville superstars, of which she was not. I used to text people, I'm like, what drives me crazy is that Van Lith is Robin, and everybody is acting on TV like she's Batman. And I think it discredits the rest of the team that had gone to the Final Four with her and the Elite Eight with her and everything else. But then after last year, after they got just cooked again by Caitlyn Clark in the Elite Eight last year, Van Lith hits the portal. Because I guess 3 Elite Eights and a Final Four, that's not good enough for her. She's got to go ring chasing. This is Gary Payton and Karl Malone joining the Lakers. And she joins the national champion because, again, she's a front runner. and she gets absolutely embarrassed last night in the women's basketball Super Bowl. I loved every second of it. Now, that has nothing to do with the other players like Flau'jae Johnson or Angel Reese or anybody else on LSU. I loved every second of it, and I'm not going to be sad about it. And you can say, well, I mean, just look at all the vitriol. Caroline told me today. I love Caroline, but, sometimes LSU. I told Caroline today, I said, why are people so worked up? She's like, I've never seen the kind of vitriol that I see towards LSU's women's basketball team. I'm like, you don't remember Barry Bonds' home run chase? And she was like, they called them evil or something in the LA Times. I said, you mean like when they called the Yankees the evil empire after they acquired Alex Rodriguez and it looked like they were going to go win another title? And I guess the LA Times called them dirty debutantes. And I said, well, I mean, that's not as bad as what Don Imus said back in the day about Rutgers. That's the worst thing anybody's ever said about a team in women's basketball. So, no, you can dislike LSU. Sports is a story. It is a TV show. There are heroes and there are villains. I think it's ridiculous that Tom Brady, who's one of the greatest guys of all time, if you talk to anybody who's ever met Tom Brady, is hated by millions. But it's a TV show. It's like wrestling, although it's real. And so I don't know. You are not a bad person if you rooted against LSU. Because I enjoyed rooting against LSU last night. David from Murfreesboro says she got what she deserved for waving pageant style to the MTSU Center when she fouled out. Are we talking about Reese or are we talking about Van Lith? Because I don't even remember any of this stuff. Alex from Franklin says, seriously, Jared, how does Caroline tolerate this nonsense covering LSU? Covering LSU women's basketball sounds like a thankless job. Show Caroline some appreciation. She's a saint. She should be awarded the Medal of Honor for covering LSU athletics. Caroline doesn't cover LSU. Caroline's doing the SEC network. She covers all the SEC teams. But it's not like she's like in the locker room every day at LSU. What'd I miss on this? One texter says, I do love Kim Mulkey's outfits, but that's the only thing I like about her. I mean, Kim Mulkey is just, I mean, like now you can pay the players, so like the whole, like Kim Mulkey kind of was like Calipari, but the difference is Calipari doesn't have a mean spirit. Like Calipari's just, again, when we're talking about the good guys and bad guys and the idea of sports being a television show, Calipari was like the perfect bad guy, right? Like, oh yeah, it's Calipari. How's he getting them players? I don't know. But Calipari's not a mean-spirited person. Kim Mulkey is. Kim Mulkey do whatever it takes to win, and I don't mean that in a good way. One texter says, it's funny, we didn't hear about any of this stuff until they lost. It only started after they lost, which was weird. I loved how they asked Flau'jae Johnson, who, by the way, is a freaking ball player for LSU. They asked her about Angel Reese, and she was like, I just want to talk about Angel Reese. And she launched into this large defense of her, and then Van Lith was like, I want to say something too. Like, Van Lith, they didn't ask you that question. Van Lith was like, media, you can't break her. I don't think that they're trying to do that. I mean, I don't think the media is trying to break her, but then again, all you guys hate the media anyways, especially Kim Mulkey. That slazy reporter. I'm going to go. Her and Jerry Jones. Like, if I could set up, and I know they're both married, but if I could set anybody, although I think Mulkey in that Washington Post story says she's divorced. I don't know. I don't care. If I could set somebody just texted something into the text line that, like, every now and then, like, but if I could just set her and Jerry Jones up, just the ruthless Texas, anything it takes to win, those children, oof, that would be something. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. I have a question for everybody when it comes to the NFL draft. Do you believe that some team is actually going to take J.J. McCarthy with the 3rd, 4th, 5th, or 6th overall pick, or even the 7th? Do you believe that somebody might do that? We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company right here on 102.5-1063 The Game. If you want to weigh in, that phone number again is 615-737-1025 here on our program. We're live from Bridgestone Arena here on 102.5-1063 The Game. And again, we'll be giving away Preds tickets for Thursday night later in today's show. Tune into 94.9 The Fan as the Sounds take on the St. Paul Saints at First Horizon Park. Do we know if this game's still going on tonight, Ian?
That game is still going on, yes.
Okay. Pre-game at 6:20, first pitch at 6:35, with coverage also available on the 94.9 The Fan app and at 94.9thefan.com. Sounds Baseball is presented by Twin Peaks Family Leisure and Busy Beat Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning.
Our goal is to try to give people a reflection of where we think these players are going to go. How much of JJ being at 14 is how much you like Mel versus how much you think the league likes JJ McCarthy?
I could care less, Theo. The rationale here is getting the gap, closing that gap between Drake May and JJ McCarthy. That was my goal in terms of that ranking moving, and I didn't feel comfortable with a huge gap between JJ and Drake. So it really had nothing to do. We know he's going to go probably in the top 6 overall. So I think when you look at the gap between Drake May and J.J. McCarthy, I wanted to close it a little bit. That's why he's at 14. He's not going to get any higher. That's as high as he's going to go. So he's at 14. We know he's going to go in the top 6. To me, that's overdrafting. So I wasn't going to push him up any higher. But I didn't want to have McCarthy at 25 and Drake May in the top 10 on the big board. Didn't want to have that differential there. That's why I made that move.
Okay, so Mel Kiper was asked, why did he move J.J. McCarthy up to 14 on his big board? And Mel was like, well, I'm trying to close the gap between him and Drake May. I know he's going to go with the top 6 picks, but I'm telling you right now, I am not going higher. He's not going higher than 14 on this big board. It sounds to me like Mel doesn't think that J.J. McCarthy is the 14th best player in the draft. He just doesn't want to have to explain to people on TV how he can have the 20th best player going 6th overall. Play that cut again, Ian, where you can hear Mel just basically say, yeah, now I think the guy sucks, but they think he's good.
Our goal is to try to give people a reflection of where we think these players are going to go. How much of JJ being at 14 is how much you like Mel versus how much you think the league likes JJ McCarthy?
I could care less, Theo. The rationale here is getting the gap, closing that gap between Drake May and J.J. McCarthy. That was my goal in terms of that ranking moving, and I didn't feel comfortable with a...
What does it... What? Like, isn't the big board supposed to be Mel's actual thoughts on who's good and who's not? Anyway, I digress. It is wild to me, because I'm not a huge J.J. McCarthy guy, but I haven't studied him either. You know, the Titans have a quarterback, so I haven't watched the tape and all that kind of stuff. It is wild to me that the NFL is going to overdraft these quarterbacks the exact same way they overdrafted these quarterbacks in 2021. Like, did you not look at what happened in this league and learn your lesson from it? Nope, I guess not. Everybody's thinking J.J. McCarthy, number 4? You know, we hear these insiders and reporters, and we hear these people come out and they say, oh, no, it's serious. You know, I think this team wants J.J. McCarthy at number 5. And it's like, they want to trade 2 first-round picks to go get J.J. McCarthy? Really? Then we see some Bo Nix, 12, Michael Penix, 14, whatever. And maybe all those guys are good. I have no idea. But they weren't that good in college. Penix was, but, you know, he's old and is injured. And some of these teams are just straight up set up to fail these guys. Like Chicago with a defensive head coach. Washington with Cliff Kingsbury as their OC. Again, another defensive coach. And I'm like, And then New England, they have a defensive coach. They don't have any players. Who's New England's best wide receiver? Ian, who's New England's best wide receiver?
They don't have Devontae Parker anymore, right?
Nope, they cut him.
Do they have Kendrick Bourne still?
He's coming off of a torn ACL.
Hunter Henry? He's a tight end.
He's a tight end. I believe their best wide receiver is a guy by the name of Pop Douglas.
Yeah, Douglas, the last name, I don't remember it. Pop's not his real first name. But you're right. He did flash a little bit, but he was not very good.
Pop Douglas. Boy, I tell you, Drake May, he's got a real chance throwing to Pop Douglas. Ian's like, that guy does exist. I mean, like, that's what. So, again, we've seen this in the past when San Francisco dealt 3 first-round picks to move up to draft Trey Lance. Like, the Jets are an unmitigated disaster because Zach Wilson stinks. And so now the entire NFL is just, no, that's okay. JJ and Bo Nix and, these guys, they're ready to go. I'm like, what? I do not get the NFL. Like, I do not get, for instance, because some people will talk about the value of these quarterbacks, And they'll say, well, the value is so good for a guy on a rookie contract. It doesn't matter if he stinks. If he stinks, then you stink. So it doesn't matter. Great, you can go get Calvin Ridley and L'Jarius Sneed if you're not paying your quarterback $60 million a year. But if your quarterback's terrible, then it doesn't matter if you have Calvin Ridley or L'Jarius Sneed. That's the whole point. But I'm also not going to complain too much about it because my team has the 7th pick in the draft. So, hey, knock yourself out. I think you should all take them. Go take Bo Nix at 5. And maybe these guys are good. I don't know. But it's just like, and it's crazy to me to compare this to Levis, where last year there were all these teams that could have gone quarterback. Seattle had 2 first-round picks and Geno Smith. They could have gone quarterback. And they're like, nope, 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 nope. And like Levis has first-round talent. Like Levis, the reason Levis fell and didn't go in the top half of the first round is because his team at Kentucky was terrible and because he came off to people as kind of a weirdo. Whether or not he is a weirdo, that's a different discussion, but he came off to people as a weirdo. And so I'm like, not one of these teams last year was like, okay, yeah, we'll take Will Levis. We don't have to trade anything to get him. We'll just take him at 23 or whatever it is. Nope. But now, oh, we got to have J.J. McCarthy. Really? I do not get that. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. The other thing that these teams do is they will manufacture a young quarterback because, well, we got to have somebody. And that may happen with Bo Nix or Michael Penix here. But there's one guy that I just don't get that nobody is saying, oh, we can go with this guy? We'll do that next. Here on Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 The Game. Let's talk about FanDuel Sportsbook. That's right. FanDuel Sportsbook is my official sportsbook app. The sports calendar is loaded, and FanDuel is making it even more exciting to get in on the action. Because right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 bonus bets you can use on the tournament, the women's tournament, Major League Baseball, the NBA, the NHL, and so much more. Visit FanDuel.com/JGM and make your first bet a big win. That's with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, and my official sportsbook app. 21 and over and present in Tennessee. That's right. First online real money wager, only $10 first deposit required. Bonus issues, non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call the Tennessee Red Line at 1-800-889-9789.
the Vikings and Broncos, respectively, both in position to try to make a move up. Somebody asked me this yesterday. I don't really think the Broncos are going to do it. They're still in the immediate aftermath of everything they gave up to get Russell Wilson. Maybe Sean Payton thinks this gets him a third year. This guarantees it. If he's got a guy he's going to groom and develop, and we've talked about that dynamic before. We talked about it earlier in the show, that it can buy you some job security. But man, that's a heck of a move. That's a risky move. But it would explain taking the $53 million cap charge this year, taking $18 million more than you need to, because if your starting quarterback is on a rookie contract, you don't need to have that money around.
Yeah, I think, there's the aspect you brought up. I think there's the aspect of Sean Payton looking at it going, wait, I want to get my guy in here and start grooming for the big picture future here. I'm not worried about next year or whatever. He wants to I want to get into a New Orleans Saints type run with a quarterback that's like Drew Brees, and we could start tearing up the NFL and be a consistent, big time player in the Super Bowl conversation.
There you go. That was Florio and Chris Sims, and they're talking about Denver, for instance, because Denver is one of these teams that, again, when we hear about J.J. McCarthy, and this is good for the Titans. Like, I hope these teams are stupid enough to say, oh, we got to trade up to get Bo Nix, whether it's Denver or the Raiders or Minnesota, whoever. They're like these teams that don't really have quarterbacks. But the difference is Minnesota's got a bridge guy. Sam Darnold can start if they need Sam Darnold to start. And I do like Sam Darnold. I feel like Sam Darnold has always been screwed with by the Jets and David Tepper, and that when the pressure was off and the meddling owners and bad organizations moved out of the way, for that second half run that he had with the Carolina Panthers in 2022, once Matt Rule had already been fired and Tepper had given up on the season, Carolina with DJ Moore and with Sam Darnold got back into the playoff chase. It was like once Tepper got the bozo out of there and stayed out himself, Darnold won some ball games, and then Tepper decided to, go all Leroy Jenkins on it again. But Denver is kind of I bring them up from this standpoint. Why does nobody want Ryan Tannehill? Like, the Raiders have a bridge quarterback. Gardner Minshew is under contract. So if Gardner Minshew has to play quarterback for the Raiders this year, he can. And I don't think they'll win the Super Bowl, but he'll do okay. If Sam Darnold has to play quarterback, he'll do okay. But why is Ryan Tannehill, why is he not, like, none of these teams want Ryan Tannehill at all? Like, you'd rather have a Russell Wilson than Ryan Tannehill? Ryan Tannehill did win his last start against a team that was fighting for the playoffs. And so I didn't expect Tannehill to get into free agency and get a starting job. But I thought he was going to go somewhere where the starter was on iffy ground or is an injury risk or something like that could get Tannehill back out there on the field. And where we sit today, it looks like all these teams have made up their minds. Like, we know New England's made up their mind. They're going to draft a quarterback with the 3rd overall pick, and Jacoby Brissett's going to be the backup. And if the 3rd overall pick's not ready or he gets hurt and they need a bridge guy, it'll be Brissett. All of these teams have made up their mind. And Tannehill, I don't see a job. So I see 2 choices for Ryan Tannehill. The first choice is to pull the Joe Flacco. Wait until somebody gets hurt and some team that's, winging it at the backup quarterback position, like you, some team that's winging it at backup quarterback realizes, this probably is not a good idea to go with Dorian Thompson-Robinson as our backup here now that our starting quarterback's out for the year. Let's sign Tannehill to come in the middle of the season. The other is Tannehill's going to retire. But Denver is the only team where can you really draft Bo Nix with the 12th overall pick in the draft? Can you really draft Michael Penix? And are you really going to go into the season with Jarrett Stidham as your starting quarterback? And do you really think Jarrett Stidham is better than Ryan Tannehill? Because I don't. I'm not the biggest Ryan Tannehill fan in the world, but I also don't think Ryan Tannehill's terrible. And if you could block for Ryan Tannehill, you would have won a lot more games over the last 2 years. So, I'm just surprised that not one team, we don't even hear Tannehill's name connected to anything. It's not like, oh, they're bringing in Ryan Tannehill. The Jets signed Tyrod Taylor. The Browns signed Jameis Winston. The Colts signed Joe Flacco. Like, all these teams signed these veteran starters, and not one team was interested in bringing in Ryan Tannehill, at least not that we heard of. So maybe Tannehill is going to retire. 615-737-1025. Chuck says, with the way Mitch Trubisky and Sam Howell have done, why do teams keep putting North Carolina quarterbacks like Drake May high in the draft? So years ago, I asked Floyd, because the Titans took Pac-Man Jones in 2005. And you know who was on the board in 2005 and fell all the way down the first round? Aaron Rodgers. So I asked Floyd, I said, because McNair only played that 2005 and then they moved on to Fitzgerald. I said, did you even think about Aaron Rodgers? And he said the problem was that Jeff Tedford, the head coach at the time at Cal, had some first-round picks that had come out and been busts. Guys like Kyle Bowler of the Ravens. And he said Rodgers just looked like another one of those Jeff Tedford Cal busts. And so the moral of the story is, you're not scouting where the guy played college football. You're scouting the player himself. Like, oh, we can't draft a Tennessee quarterback because Heath Schuler stinks. Well, you just lost Peyton Manning. Not sure that that's where you want to be. Will says, in a draft this deep at positions of need, it makes sense to move down within reason, though. I still don't see a match for Alt before 11. Do you? Is there a chance someone moves up to get him? If no, trade down with the Vikings, green light it, and still target Joe Alt. I think it's 50-50 if you move to 11 that you're going to get Alt. And the two teams that I think you worry about are 9, Chicago, who has Braxton Jones at left tackle, and I was told Braxton Jones is an okay left tackle on a rookie deal, but you don't want to give him $17 or $18 million, which means he's not good, but he's not Dennis Daly. Joe Alt's better than that. And then the Jets at 10. Now, the Jets at 10 don't necessarily need a left tackle, but Tyron Smith is so far away from a sure thing. So I would take Alt. And then if Tyron Smith is a sure thing, then good. And if Tyron Smith isn't a sure thing, then okay, we'll make an adjustment here. And Alt goes in. But I think it's 50-50. It would be the responsible thing for both teams to take Joe Alt, and yet I could see both teams talking themselves out of it. One texter said, J-Rob and Vrabel killed Tannehill with bad decisions. I think that's a two-way street, though. Now, I can argue that the Todd Downing thing ruined Tannehill, and that's Vrabel's fault, and I certainly think there's some truth to that. But that Cincinnati game, there's no way to prove this, and people do this all the time. Oh, if this hadn't happened, we would have won this. Or like Terry Robisky told Joe Rexrode in a column he wrote about Derrick Henry in The Athletic that if they had brought the Malarkey coaching staff back for 2018, he thought the Titans were going to win the Super Bowl. Like, great. But there's no way to know that. That being said, I think the Titans would have won the Super Bowl in 2021 if Tannehill hadn't thrown those 3 interceptions against Cincinnati. And so because of that, I mean, J-Rob and Vrabel have to look at Tannehill too. Say, man, if that had not happened. 615-737-1025. We got 2 different messages coming from the Titans about what to expect from the Titans. We'll do that coming up next. Hey, score big this spring with Lee Company and the Nashville Predators in the 10K Power Play giveaway. Enter for a chance to win a Kohler home generator or $10,000 towards Lee Company Home Services. That's right, a Kohler home generator or $10,000 towards Lee Company Home Services. Go online to leecompany.com/giveaway. That's leecompany.com/giveaway for the 10K Power Play giveaway. Contest entries are accepted until Saturday, April 20th. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3. The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Spring Hill. God dang it, I almost did it again. We are live from the brand new Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Barry Trotz in 1 hour because we are live from Bridgestone Arena where the Predators take on the Boston Bruins tonight. And I used to cover the Bruins back in the day, and for some reason I just have the Bruins PA announcer stuck in my head, Ian. The guy used to talk like he was the Count on Sesame Street.
Okay, I'm not sure I've heard him.
He used to be like, and now for your Boston Bruins. And now it's just stuck in my head for some reason.
Yeah, it doesn't stand out. I mean, I've done so many games. I guess in Boston, not too much. You don't hear the PA guy. But
oh, and they used to have this organ. I'm sure they still do. But I remember when I used to cover it, and it would be like, and starting at right wing, Milan Lucic. And then you hear, da-na. I loved it. Anywho, the Titans seem to always be the team that has to explain things to you. You know what I mean? It's like every other organization, everything seems pretty simple for the most part, right? The president usually runs the business side of things and is kind of over the football people, but is not making the day-to-day decisions. The general manager runs the football team, and then the head coach is the guy who, as Bill Polian would say, touches the players every day. He's the guy who runs the team. But the GM is the one who's in charge of the team, and the president's in charge of him. That's normally how this works. But the Titans have this weird fakakta system where Chad Brinker is technically a president, and Rand Carthon is technically a vice president, but Rand Carthon's in charge, and Chad Brinker's not, and I don't get it. And Bill Belichick, when he ran the Patriots, used to have one voice, which meant that Bill Belichick did all the talking. John Clayton and Floyd used to always joke with each other. The late, great John Clayton used to always joke with each other when we were at the Combine that when Floyd went to New England, their friendship had to take a hiatus because Belichick didn't want anybody talking about anything at any time. He wanted one message, and he wanted that message coming from him. Well, Paul Kaharski caught up at the owners' meetings with Chad Brinker and Rand Carthon and asked at paulkaharski.com what their definition of success was. And we've got two totally different responses. So here's Chad Brinker, the president of football operations. Quote, we've got to all trust in our process. I'm very process-driven. If we can see the improvements not only on the field, we have made improvements you've written about in the strength and conditioning staff, the analytics, and we continue to build that out. There are improvements going on behind the scenes. We hope to see the results on the field. It may not come right away, but if we believe in what we are doing and continue to work on in our process, those results will come. Are they going to come in year one? Question mark. By the way, it's not year one, folks. It's year two for these people, but that's a different discussion. Are they going to come in year one? We would love to see that happen. I don't know yet. There are so many new guys coming in. We've had quite a bit in free agency. We've got a whole draft class. We've got a new coaching staff. There is just a lot that had to gel and come together to really know. Excuse me, what? So does this mean like, hey, fans, I have no idea if we're going to be any good this year? What defines success? Well, if our analytics department is growing behind the scenes, then I guess that counts as success. What? Then there's Rand Carthon, who supposedly is Chad Brinker's boss, but he's the vice president, whereas Brinker is the president. On says, when asked the same question by Paul, quote, the short end of it, we're all judged by wins and losses. More than anything, I just want to see our team and organization grow, build a level of consistency, be perennial players, not only in the AFC South, but in the AFC as a whole, and get this organization back to where it was, where it's always in contention for the division, the playoffs, just want to get us back to that level, what our fan base is used to. You see the difference between the two statements? Like, I'm on Rand's side for this. Rand Carthon saying, we need to win. That's what he's saying. And he's right. He needs to win. They need to win. You don't change a coach because it's like, well, we're trying to lose more, so let's change the coach. Or, oh, we're okay with losing more, so let's change the coach. You don't change a coach for that. You change the coach to win more games. You sign Calvin Ridley, you trade for L'Jarius Sneed. You do these things to win more games. But Brinker's comments, I mean, honestly, I'm furious when I read these. We got to trust in our process. If we can see improvements not only on the field, we don't give a rat's ass about any of the off-the-field improvements. What do I care about your analytics department? The whole point of the analytics department and the strength and conditioning department is so that you can win football games on the field. And in any other organization, they would have the guy that's in charge, i.e., the general manager. They would have that guy do the talking, and that guy would say what Rand said, which is, we need to win. We need to be competing in the AFC. We need to be competing not just in the AFC South, in the AFC. The other guy is, we'll see. I don't know what's going to happen in year one, which is actually year two. I don't know. And those are two incredibly mixed messages. Now, I've talked to Chad Brinker before, and I don't think Chad Brinker's stupid. Again, I haven't talked to him a lot. And again, I don't think he's stupid, but it seems like he keeps trying to bullcrap the fans. And I understand no coach is ever going to come out and say, no GM, no coach, no anybody who's responsible for winning. The owner can say it because the owner's not going to get fired or have to eat their words or whatever. But no coach is ever going to say, what's your expectations for the season, coach? My expectation is we need to win 9 games this year. I'd love to win 10 or 11, but we have got to win 9 games or I'm getting fired. You'll never hear that. And that's fine. But Rand said what needed to be said, which is we need to be good. We need to compete. We need to win. That I like. But then Brinker is like, well, we went out and got a lot of guys in free agency and we got a new coaching staff, so I don't know what's going to happen. It's like, did you do those things to lose? When you took Amy's money and you gave $50 million to Calvin Ridley and $55 million to L'Jarius Sneed with no waivers for those knees, when you did that, did you do that to lose? I mean, it's not like Rand's promising they're going to win, but he's saying, hey, we got to win. And then I wonder, why do I even care what Chad Brinker thinks? Isn't Chad Brinker, isn't he in charge of the field turf manager and the IT department? They say he's in charge of the non-football things, but then they also say he's in charge of analytics, which is a football thing. So, I don't even know. This is the one organization where they have to explain everything all the time because their way is better than everybody else's. So the guy's in charge of the equipment manager, and he's in charge of IT and media relations, but he's going to pro days or he's going to the senior, but what? And he's the president, and the GM is the vice president. What? And one guy says we need to win, and the other guy says, I hope we win. What? What is going on with this? Every time the Titans, every time they've got an answer, we've got our super secret way of how we're going to build this thing. And, hey, you guys watch. You'll see, Jared. Just like last year when they had nobody in charge and they were collaborating. And they were like, well, San Francisco collaborates. No, they don't. Kyle Shanahan's in charge. There's a difference between the two. So bravo to Rand for what he said because this team needs to win, and he will be judged off of that, and he knows he will be judged off that. But again, the Titans can't just let one guy say something and that be what stands for the organization. In the same article, the other guy, who we don't know if he's on top, below, to the side of, I have no idea. The other guy says something totally different. So somebody explain to me what's going on. Do we need to win or do we hope to win? You tell me what to do this year. Because, it's like, can we just do this the right way? Can we just do this normally? just like every other team. Do the Steelers have this problem? Or are the Titans smarter than the Steelers? Do the Seahawks have this problem, or are the Titans smarter than the Seahawks? Somebody help me out here. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. Now, I'm on Rand's side on this one. They need to be competing. But for some reason, I think that we need to define what competing means, because that is a goalpost that can move. And we'll do that next. 615-737-1025 here on our program, here on Stillman & Company. Let's talk about Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. We're live at Bridgestone Arena, and you're going to see that Happy Hiller logo right there at the center of the ice for tonight's game. And Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, they are the best. Smile and save this month with Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, because from now until April 30th, you can take advantage of big savings on home systems. Enjoy up to $1,500 off select new HVAC systems, whole home water filtration and descalers, or select new whole home generators. And you saw the bad weather that we had today. It's going to happen this time of year. Your power goes out. You want to have a generator. Trust me on that. If you've been waiting for the right time to upgrade or replace your systems, now is the time to do that. So visit happyhiller.com today for the details. Again, that's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, Electrical, proud supporters of the Preds, the Vols, and Vandy. Hiller, call the Happy Face truck today.
How did you adapt to that and adjust to getting that criticism to make yourself stronger and make you better at your job, and how will you apply that into year 2?
Man, I just ignore the noise. I mean, there's a reason why I'm not on social media, so you don't have to, hear all that. Like, I'm not on social media, but, I have friends and family that are, and they kind of, keep me in the loop. Again, you don't go out to be in one of these positions and not know that scrutiny is going to come. But to me, the cure-all to it all is winning football games. And that's what my focus is and always will be, is winning football games. And I know that the more we could do that, the better off we'll be. And that's my job. And I know ultimately if I don't do enough of that, then I know this won't be my job. And so I try to stay focused on, the guys in the building hear me talk about it all the time, keep the main thing the main thing. And the main thing is constantly improving this roster and putting us in position to win football games. And so that's always been my focus.
There you go. That was Rand Carthon on, I think last month maybe, or maybe 2 months, I can't remember, on with Chase and Big Joe. And he said right there, I mean, all that matters is that we win football games. I mean, that's all. He's saying it right there. That's all that matters. And so when Paul Kaharski at paulkaharski.com asks what the definition of success is, and Rand says, the short end of it, we're all judged by wins and losses. More than anything, I want to see our team and organize grow, build a level of consistency, be perennial players not only in the AFC South, but in the AFC as a whole, and get this organization back to where it was, where it's always in contention for the division, the playoffs, and just want to get us back to that level what our fan base is used to. Bingo! Rand Carthon is absolutely right. This team, this year, needs to be competing for the playoffs. Now, some people don't want to put expectations on the Titans. Some people want to make excuses for them before the season even started. They're the same people that made excuses before free agency saying, we can't spend all of our money, Jared, because we don't know if Levis is the guy. That are then the same guys saying, oh, yes, Calvin Ridley. Oh, yes, Lloyd Cushenberry. Oh, yes, an $8 million running back, even though I yelled every day at that mean radio man that a third-round pick on a running back is a little bit too rich. And some people also don't think that competing is good enough because, well, John Robinson drafted Caleb Farley, so even though he was in first place, he got fired, whatever. But we need to just go over what competing means, because I think some people have a hard time understanding the difference between competing and winning. There is a difference. Competing is what the Predators are doing right now. The Predators are contenders. Every single team they play, they can compete with and they could beat. Doesn't mean that they will. That's competing. Winning is holding up the Lombardi Trophy. What competitive means is that on Christmas Day, when the Seattle Seahawks host the San Francisco 49ers, and they flash up on that pregame show with Terry Bradshaw, the AFC playoff picture, that you're at least in the hunt. That's what that means. And it is impossible for everybody out there, because I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, Jared, we're terrible right now. What are we going to? It is impossible to say that that goal is too hard to reach when Jacksonville picked first in 2022 and ended up in the divisional round of the playoffs. Houston picked second in 2023 and ended up in the divisional round of the playoffs. And Indy picked fourth last year and was right there with Houston and Jacksonville. In the NFL, it is very doable to be competitive, like Rand said. What I don't like is, again, I don't like the mixed messages that on one hand, Rand is saying, hey, we got to win around here, which I like. And on the other hand, Chad Brinker, the president, is saying, I don't know. We need to see a growing analytics department. That's not success for me. Success for me is when you play the Colts, do you have a shot to win? That on Christmas Day, that you're in the hunt. That's what matters to me. I want it to be a bad thing. This is what I want. I want Louisville to be in some big-time bowl game next year, which with our coach we might be, and for me to really agonize over whether or not I'm going to miss a day to travel to the Fiesta Bowl or whatever, as opposed to, it's a big one this week ahead of the Cleveland game. That's what I hope for. That's all I ask. I'm not asking you to win Super Bowl. Those are two totally different things. Phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. LD from McMinnville says, according to Willie, the Titans are in a 2-3 rebuild. Well, let me just say this. Rand Carthon didn't say we need to take 2 to 3 years to rebuild. Again, I can't get over that Brinker cut. That Brinker line of what you told Paul is we hope to see results on the field. It may not come right away. Baby, if they don't come right away, you ain't going to be here. Like, that's just how this owner operates. Oh, it's okay. It may not happen right away. I'm sorry. This is the NFL. It didn't happen for Lovie Smith right away, and they fired his ass. It happened for D'Amico Ryans right away, and they love him. So Tyler's mad at me in the text line because, again, Chad Brinker said, I'm very process-driven. If we can see improvements not only on the field, we have made improvements. You've written about the strength and conditioning staff, the analytics, and we continue to build that. There are improvements going on behind the scenes. I said, I don't care about that. I don't care about your strength and conditioning program. I don't care about your analytics program. I don't care about any of that. Tyler says, so you think they didn't need to improve strength and conditioning? Wait a minute. Hold up. Did I say that? No, I didn't say that. Unlike all of you that questioned it, and I'm not saying you, the fans, but I'm just saying, that questioned it, and Vrabel was like, well, when I played, I never said that trainer sucked, so that means that it's not the trainer's fault. And I never let that go with Vrabel. If you'll remember, when I asked Vrabel about the assistant coaches, and he told me all the assistant coaches were good before he ended up having to fire Craig Aukerman, which I was right about. Before all of that, Vrabel was like, well, I played, and I never blamed Dean Pease, and I never blamed Romeo Crennel, and I never blamed those guys when I was playing. And I'm like, well, you said you never blamed the trainer, and you guys still get hurt all the time. Well, all I care about is whether or not you win. I don't care about your analytics department. All I care is that you win. Tyler says, they do have to make those improvements across the board, the results, which is winning. I'm sorry you couldn't hear him actually say more than we need to win, which is the most obvious answer. The problem is that he didn't say we need to win. Rand said we need to win. Brinker said we've got to trust in the process. Brinker says if we believe in what we are doing and continue to work our process, those results will come. Are they going to come in year one? We would love to see that happen. I don't know yet. And the other thing, again, don't say like, I hope it works. No, duh, you hope it works. But when it comes to what would success be, success in the NFL is defined by what happens on the field. Nobody cares about the process in your analytics department, especially me. You got the best analytics department in the league? Great. Then I hope it wins you some more games. And if it does, good. But I'm not going to sit here and say, well, the Titans won 5 games this year, but their analytics are better. That does not do it for me. And it feels like he's kind of preparing that to be the goalpost. That's what drives me crazy is it's like, well, if we're good, then I get the credit, and if we're bad, don't blame me. No. If you're good, you get the credit, and if you are bad, then you get fired. When you were good, Mike Vrabel was coach of the year. He got all the credit. When you were bad, Mike Vrabel got fired. That's how it works. And you are not immune to that. And I don't know about you guys, but if I was Brinker, I'd have a low profile. And I'll tell you why. Because I don't really know what he does, what his job is. Because the Titans give him the president title, but then they have Rand in charge of football. So the vice president is above the president, and that's just something that I guess we'll all just have to understand on our own. I've never heard that before. I've never seen a company where the vice president has more power than the president, but again, this is the Titans. So that's the first thing. The second thing is the things that he's in charge of, whether it's the field turf, whether it's the IT department, whether it's security, PR, whatever it may be. The things that he's in charge of, you can lose, and if people don't know who you are and you stay out of the spotlight, everybody can get fired and you stay. Vin Marino manages the Titans salary cap, and he managed the salary cap under John Robinson, and he managed it under Rustin Webster, and, I mean, he's been here for a long time. Now, I don't know Vin very well, but everything that I do know about him, Vin's a very good man. But every time somebody gets fired, Vin Marino didn't get fired. Because, again, he's just managing the salary cap. He's not telling anybody, oh, yeah, you know, we need to draft this right guard. At least I don't think he is. Which is why you'll never hear me or anybody like me say, oh, yeah, that Vin Marino, he's terrible. He's this, he's that. You'll never hear that. So, again, like, I wouldn't be coming out and telling the fans, like, we might not be very good, fans. I hope, but I don't know. And then the other thing that kills me is year one. Year one. You are not Brian Callahan. This is year two. Last year happened. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. So I have a serious question when it comes to me, and just common sense. Why do I always have to be the bad guy? Why? We'll do that next here on Stillman & Company. 615-737-1025 is our phone number again. If you want to weigh in, we're giving away Preds tickets later today in the program. Again, that phone number is 615-737-1025. And Preds fans, do not miss tomorrow night's Smashville Live at Brewhouse South in Cool Springs at 6 o'clock. See your Predators star players up close and personal, plus get autographs and pictures. And this week's special guests are Spencer Stastny and my guy, Mark Jankowski. Smashville Live is brought to you by the Black Abbey Brewing Company and ESPN Bet Sportsbook.
can you tell Titan fans, in regards to your knee, that they have nothing to worry about?
Titans fans, I'm here to tell you that you don't have anything to worry about from the Jerry Sneed knee. The Jerry Sneed is going to go out there every practice, every game, and give you my all. Go back and watch the film. I gave everybody my all, no matter what my knee, because the condition that my knee was in. My knee is in great position. I know what to do to maintain my knee, or whatever I need to do. I got this end of my part. I'm just going out here and play ball. Just give Tennessee Titans fans and this organization all of me. So the knee is not a problem.
Okay.
So they can start worrying about that.
Just from kind of a business standpoint, a contractual standpoint, did you agree to sign a waiver on the guarantees if the knee does become an issue?
So repeat that, please.
So just in case the knees do become an issue, I know a lot of people are relieved to hear that you said that it won't be an issue, but did you agree to sign a waiver contractually if the knees do become an issue?
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't sign no waiver.
Or is the money fully guaranteed?
Yes.
There you go. That was earlier today on Caroline, Willie, and D. Mace. And so we had talked about, these knees, Carrington Harrison out of Kansas City came on last week in Kansas City, and he said that Sneed's needs are so bad that apparently he's like, how you will say, oh, no, they're not that bad. And this is what Carrington Harrison said, who's a host in Kansas City, and I think pretty well connected there, and is a colleague of mine at SiriusXM. And he said on his afternoon show, he said, we have the cut, but we don't need to play it. Just the idea of, oh, no, his knees aren't that bad. And Carrington said, no, they're that bad. So, that's kind of the scuttlebutt that had come out. And so TD had sent me a tweet on Friday from Pete Sweeney of Arrowhead Pride that said that Minnesota offered Kansas City a 2024 fourth rounder, so this year's fourth and next year's third. Clearly a better deal than you offered because you only offered next year's third. But that ultimately long-term health concerns made Minnesota withdraw. So Minnesota was interested. Minnesota was willing to give more than you. And Minnesota, whatever it is they heard, however it is they heard it, said, nah, we're good. And Kansas City wasn't interested in signing him to a long-term deal. And apparently no other team in the league wanted to give up a better pick in this year's draft for what is one of the best corners in the NFL. Why do I have to be the bad guy and say that something smells funny here? I'm like, wait a minute. The Titans just gave $55 million guaranteed over 3 years to a guy that the entire league is literally not touching with a 10-foot pole, and there's no waiver in the contract over the knees, and I'm the bad guy because I'm the one that's like, guys, this doesn't add up. And you know it, and I know it, and quite frankly, I hate it, but for some reason, every time something like this happens, I'm the bad guy. Aaron Brewer, a 270-pound offensive lineman. I'm like, this is not going to work. And everybody had their excuses as to why it was going to work. And even early in the season, people tried to be like, see, Jared Brewer's the man. Yeah, no. I had to be the bad guy on that one. How about Vrabel and Rand Carthon? Remember the collaboration? There's no drama between them. Diana Rossini says, Vrabel's coming back. I mean, what are we talking about here? There's no question about on Thanksgiving. 6 weeks later, he's fired. I had to be the bad guy on that. They took a guard with the 11th overall pick. I had to be the bad guy about that. Julio Jones, Jadeveon Clowney, I was the bad guy about that. In fact, I was the bad guy when it came to Malik Willis. Remember, I went out there to training camp, and I'm like, he sucks right now. And everyone's like, he's a rookie, Jared. Give him time. He's a rookie. And I'm like, I said he sucks right now. So if he has to go in a game, he sucks. I watched him in a 2-minute drill against the Arizona Cardinals throw the ball away on 4th down. You don't throw the ball away on 4th down in a 2-minute drill, you lose the game. And I saw him do that. And I begged him, go get a backup quarterback. I watched tape on Nate Sudfeld and Nick Mullins and all these other Shanahan guys that might come available that they could sign to stick in back of Tannehill, because Logan Woodside sucked, to stick behind Tannehill so that Malik Willis wouldn't have to get in the game, and all of a sudden it's Sunday Night Football and you can't complete a pass. But I'm the bad guy. In fact, the times I've taken the Titans side, and with the narratives, it's blown up in my face. Buying into the hype about Burks and Chig, and I was on board with the A.J. Brown trade. That blew up in my face. So when I'm not the bad guy, I end up being wrong. When I am the bad guy, because something clearly smells funky here, instead of, Minnesota reportedly withdrew a much better trade because they didn't like what they heard about the knees? Yep. And the Titans had the opportunity after the physical to sit down with Sneed and draw up a waiver that would allow the Titans to get out of the guaranteed money if the knees degraded to the point where he couldn't play for them anymore? And did they do it? Nope. And everything's good? And I just hate it. I hate that I always have to be the bad guy, but, again, this is so fishy. It's like there's this great – here are the facts when it comes to Sneed. He's a good player. There's no doubt about that. That he was healthy enough this past season in spite of this knee injury to play this past season. It is not a fact that he will be healthy to play the future season, but it is a fact that he was healthy enough to play this past season. Which is good. Kansas City tagged him. Kansas City was not interested in extending him. And Kansas City decided to take a 3rd rounder in next year's draft instead of trying to re-win the Super Bowl with him. Those are facts. The Titans gave him reportedly a $55 million guaranteed contract with no language in there to protect him of the knee. Again, that's a fact because he says it's the fact. So, when it comes to all of this stuff, it doesn't add up that a really good player would go for a 3rd rounder in next year's draft and that Minnesota wouldn't be interested after whatever it is, the research they did, and nobody else around the league would be interested in better. And none of you guys are skeptical about this? A serious question. Nobody's skeptical about this? Well, L'Jarius Sneed says his knee's okay, so it must be okay. And that makes you feel better? I compared it earlier today to a lender, a bank. Looking for a loan. They go to Regions. Regions says no. They go to Fifth Third. Fifth Third says no. They go to Pinnacle. Pinnacle says no. They go to U.S. Bank. U.S. Bank says no. They go to Truist. Truist says no. They go to the bank of Rand Carthon. He says yes. Well, he says he's good for the money. You're not skeptical of that? Because that's what's happening here. And again, I just don't like being I don't like being the bad guy. Benny in West Tennessee says you have to be the bad guy because you're damn good at it, and we appreciate it in all caps. Thank you, Benny. I'm sure you're the only one who feels that way. One texter says, Sneed may have technically not signed a waiver, but he may have signed a contract with injury conditions written into the contract. Boy, a lot of people are trying to zoom in on this, really magnify. He says the money's fully guaranteed. If he says the money's fully guaranteed, that's all we can go off of. And it's fully guaranteed as of now. Now, if the Titans ended up working something in there, and, it kind of reminds me of the Kyler Murray homework clause. Like if we find something like that on the back end, then I'll commend them. But all we can go off of is what Sneed said, and he said no. Somebody said Aaron Brewer signed a 3-year, $21 million deal with the Dolphins, so last year wasn't that bad. You take that up with the Dolphins. Aaron Brewer sucks. One texter says, at Sneed's age, he's a great player with years left in his prime. It should have been a bidding war. I'll just compare it to A.J. Brown because A.J. had bad knees too. A.J. had surgery on both knees before he got traded. And yes, wide receiver is more valuable than corner, but corner's a very valuable position. In the case of A.J. Brown, he went for a 1 and a 3 that day. Sneed goes for a 3 the next day? The next year, excuse me? Doesn't add up. And again, I have to be the bad guy. Sure, Joe Rexrode will look like a tomato tomorrow yelling and screaming about a conspiracy theory or something or another. 615-737-1025. We'll get to more of your phone, 615-737-1025. Plus, there is a show out there that I think I'm starting to buy the hype that it's failing, and I think a lot of you are going to be happy about this. But I have a thought. I just have to get this thought out. So we'll do it next. It's a topic that I think you guys care about, but I got to get this off. We'll do that next. Barry Trotz at 5 o'clock here on Stillman and Company. Twice daily. I got to get it out of my chest that I love Twice Daily, which I do. Twice Daily has your cravings, and you can save on every visit. Download that app, the Twice Daily app, because then you can get rewards with the rewards program on the Twice Daily app. Stop in and get rewarded. All you need to do is join the Twice Daily Rewards program to unlock special discounts, savings, and so much more. It pays to be a member with Twice Daily. And again, I know this because I am a member of the Twice Daily Rewards program. They've also got all their made-to-order stuff, which is fabulous. I had a bagel made the other day, egg whites, turkey, provolone. Oh, it was great. They've got new wraps as well, Italian ham and cheddar, turkey and Swiss, Nashville hot chicken, and they're made to order with your favorite toppings. When you download the app, you can order ahead. Or at Twice Daily, it's snack time all the time with favorites like chicken fingers, tater rounds, and the new pretzels. Twice Daily. What are you craving?
Just hard to believe. A player that played at such a high level last year only merited a third-round pick. It just seems like somebody would say, I need that, I want that, at least a 2, if not a 1. If you told me that you got a 1 for L'Jarius Sneed, I'd say, good for you. That works.
Yeah, but that 1 plus that, I don't know what he's going to get, $90 million or whatever it's going to be, that's a big number.
He's 27 years old.
He's young.
He was originally a 4th-round pick, to your point, out of Louisiana Tech, and he's played 4 seasons. So he should be entering his prime as a corner. And I'll never forget the first thing Jimmy Johnson told me when I met him in 1989 was, he's a defensive coach, as you know, you win with the guy who can rush the passer and the guy who can cover the pass, with your defensive end and your cornerback. You have to have them or you can't play defense.
So that was Skip Bayless on Undisputed talking about L'Jarius Sneed. So, Ian, the topic that I'm about to get into is not actually about L'Jarius Sneed.
Okay.
It's about Skip Bayless.
Okay.
Have you seen the ratings for Skip Bayless's Undisputed?
Can't say I have, no.
So what happened with Undisputed was it was him and Shannon Sharp. And look, it's FS1 shows, Cal Hurd and Skip Bayless, and they're never going to be higher than ESPN shows because ESPN is on way more cable networks, and packages than FS1. And ESPN has, games at night like basketball or like last night's, LSU game. And so people wake up in the morning and they'll turn it on. Plus, everybody's been watching ESPN for forever. FS1 is relatively new. But Skip and Shannon did pretty well. Well, Shannon left because he and Skip couldn't get along. And since Shannon left, they took a hiatus and rebranded the show with Skip, Keyshawn Johnson, Richard Sherman, and Michael Irvin, and they don't have a moderator in the show. And that show last Thursday averaged under 48,000 viewers, which is terrible. Like, guys, Skip Bayless is doing terribly. And I think there's a lot of you out there that probably love that. That probably hear, yes, Skip Bayless, I hate him, his show stinks, this is great. As Awful Announcing writes, it was clear that Fox already had a problem with Bayless on its hands when it struggled to find a permanent co-host to replace Shannon Sharp, and viewership lagged throughout the NFL season. But in the week since the Super Bowl, the situation has gone from bad to worse. That's how bad this is with Skip Bayless. And I'm going to tell you this. I don't think it's Skip Bayless's fault. There are a couple of thoughts I have. Number one, I think that TV has this massive misunderstanding for what works and what doesn't, for what people care about and what they don't care about. That's the first thing. We'll get into that in a second. The second thing, and I am not campaigning for any job because I have a great job and I'm doing great at my job. So I'm not campaigning for this, but I'm dead serious when I say I think I could save that show. Because I think I get it, unlike 99% of the people out there. And when I say 99% of the people, I'm talking about these people that are making decisions at the highest level. They don't get it. I'm going to tell you why Pat McAfee works and why Skip Bayless with this group is not. Pat McAfee works because Pat McAfee has high energy, they talk a lot, and they talk football, football, football. That's it. When these shows like First Take and Shannon and Skip, when they start talking basketball, I feel like most of America. Click. When I'm on Mad Dog Radio, unless LeBron James decides he's going to retire, when I'm on Mad Dog Radio, if I talk NBA, I don't get a single call. On the championship Saturday, the producers at Sirius were like, oh, we might be able to get this college basketball coach on, or we may be able to talk to this guy. I said, we're not doing that. I said, we're talking football. We talked about Russell Wilson and the Steelers, tons of phones, midway through the show, tons of people tweeting, all kinds of stuff. And again, that doesn't define whether or not your show's good or whatever, but again, you just feel like people are engaged. Then the Justin Fields trade went down. I was like, we were supposed to have Pat Bradley on from the SEC Network, college basketball. I said, cancel it. Cancel it. We're staying on football. What people want is they want opinion, and they want the other guys that Skip Bayless is around. These guys suck. Keyshawn sucks. Like, Keyshawn sucked on TV, which is why they got rid of him. He sucked on the radio, which is why they got rid of him. And now he sucks at Fox. Richard Sherman, I mean, he's not a broadcaster. And Michael Irvin's pretty good. But they don't have a moderator that starts it off by saying, Skip, did they make the right decision to trade for Russell Wilson? Instead, it's Skip leading the show, and he can't do it. So I'm just telling you right now, just like when ESPN thought it was a good idea to put boring Max Kellerman, who also sucked on TV and radio and now doesn't have a job, just like when they thought it was a good idea to put Max Kellerman on TV, this is an unmitigated disaster because the people at the top don't understand what actually works on radio and television. And I feel bad because Skip Bayless is going to go down with the ship, but he's like a lot of these quarterbacks. You don't have a line for him. You don't have a good general manager. You don't have a good coach. You don't have a chance. And so good luck for Skip Bayless. But I don't think they'll figure this out. I don't think they will. And let me say this again. I know people are going to say, oh, there goes Jared talking about himself again. But I really think I could save that show. And I'm not campaigning for it. I got a good job right here. And if I was going to campaign for it, I'd be campaigning behind the scenes, in Los Angeles. I wouldn't be campaigning on a radio show, that show. But I think if you put me on Skip Bayless's show, I could save it. I really think that. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. 615-737-1025. Barry Trotz set to join us coming up at the top of the hour, as Barry Trotz always does on a Tuesday. The Predators have not been winning. They had won in 18 straight games. They had a point. Then, who knows? 2 in a row, 2 blown leads. Barry Trotz. Is Barry Trotz concerned? We'll ask him, and we'll do it next. Stillman and Company, plus we got Preds tickets to give away. 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Studios, Bridgestone Arena tonight. The Predators and the Boston Bruins, 7 o'clock, right here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. And we are joined, as always, by Predators General Manager Barry Trotz, presented by Gary Force Acura. Barry, before we get to it, I say we give away some tickets for Thursday night's game against St. Louis. You're going to need the fans in for that one, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a huge game. I mean, that is probably as big a game as we've had all year.
So let's give away some tickets to caller 5 right now at 615-737-1025, and you will be seeing the Predators take on the St. Louis Blues on Thursday right here at Bridgestone Arena. So, Barry, it was a great while it lasted, 18 games with a point. Then Thursday happened. Then Saturday happened. Are you worried?
No, I don't think you're worried. I think it's I've seen this, throughout my years in the game, that you go on a big run like that, it takes a lot of, focus. It takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of commitment. All those buzzwords you hear all the time, and then it usually ends when you least expect it and with a thud. Mm-hmm. It just does, and it feels like it. You don't see it coming, but it does get you, and then it usually is I always call it a grieving moment, because something ends that was very positive, and then you've sort of got to crawl out of that. And I thought our 5-on-5 game in Colorado was really, I thought, pretty good against a very good team in a very difficult arena to win hockey games at that altitude all the time. So. I thought we were really in a good place, and then obviously a couple things happened. Obviously, we took a penalty. Unfortunately, it was a 5-minute, and they capitalized on that, and then score a late goal, which we saw early in the year a lot.
Yep.
And we just couldn't get past that for the most part, and then they get an empty net goal. So for me, there was lots of good stuff on the 5-on-5, but the special teams and some unfortunate things that. Being a 5-minute major and really a late goal in a period for momentum. I think you get through that third period tied up, you have a good chance to get some points out of that. So
I want to go back to Saturday against Colorado, because I did look at that as kind of a measuring stick game, because there's a chance that you may be playing Colorado in the first round of the playoffs. And I felt like it was kind of the tale of two games where once the McDonough hit happened, whether or not it was a good call, it felt like the game kind of shifted with the 5-minute penalty, and they scored towards the end of it. And I looked at that, and I thought, the one problem I have with that is I think about these things like playoff games. And I think about Tuesday night against Vegas. If this was a playoff game, that game. And I'm like, maybe you were offside, maybe you weren't offside Tuesday night. It was very close. That decides playoff games. The McDonough hit, maybe it's a good call, maybe it's a bad call. That's going to happen in a playoff game. In that instance, in Denver, in a playoff game, you got to kill off a 5-minute penalty.
Yep.
You got to roll with 5D the rest of the game. And so I guess I looked at that and I was like, if this were a playoff game, I would not have liked how the team responded. I wonder how you view those things, thinking about the playoffs.
You're going to respond different ways. I mean, there's some execution things that happen during the game, but I think, I'm not that worried about it. Mm-hmm. I think you grow in everything. You probably grow more when you don't have success than you do when you have success. I mean, it forces you to grow when you have some tough times. That was a tough situation. Dante Fabro came back after missing some time. Now he's got to play at high altitude and a lot more minutes than he's used to and stuff like that. So you've got to respond with that. I think in the playoff games, those moments, you just got to let them go. I always say that there's no sense looking back. I mean, I've been in a situation when I was with the Islanders, as we played Game 5 in Tampa. We were tied 2-2 with the Tampa Bay Lightning, and they beat us 8-0 in their building. And the next thing that we had to do is we had to go back home, and we won that 1-0 game, or a 2-1 game in overtime. And it was Anthony Beauvillier scoring. We went to Game 7. Mm-hmm. So those things you just got to look forward. I mean, there's a reason that the windshield's about 27 times bigger than your rear view mirror. So you got to look forward, and you got to let things go. And you got to have, like, as Ted Lasso would say, you got to be a goldfish. And Yeah, in those moments, you just got to be a goldfish, and then you got to just rally.
Okay, so with that, I have a rearview mirror question to ask you.
Go ahead.
Tuesday night's comeback. Again, from your position, I'm thinking about this in the playoffs, and I'm thinking that's what great teams do.
Yep.
Is that great teams do not, it could have been very easy. Points in 18 straight games. Vegas, and I was sitting pretty close. I mean, they're flying up and down the ice from the jump. They got great players on their team. Could have been very easy to pack it in at 3-0 or 4-1, and your guys didn't. Did that mean anything to you?
Well, those probably mean more to me than the situations where it goes a little bit south on you, because the easiest thing to do is quit. I mean, you know, it's so easy to quit and say, well, it's not going to happen, so why should I give full effort? We've seen that all year with this team. You know, I would say, you know, you take the right after the trade deadline with all those 18 games, there was games that we had to score, you know, get a point late in the game with a meaningful power play. We had to come back being down. We've had to have those big kills. We've had to have the big save. We've got all that. So if I'm weighing all the positives in the last 20 games versus the negatives, it's one-sided for me. So I believe in the group. I believe in the leadership. I believe in the coaching. These guys know how to play. But you're going to have some of those, you know, the tanks get low when you go on a long streak. Everybody was trying to knock us off. It's sort of like being the Stanley Cup champion.
Sure.
Everybody's bringing your A game because they want to knock you off. And we ran into a couple A games, and some that we came back and survived. And the one in Colorado, we did not.
Barry Trotz is with us, presented by Gary Force Acura. Is there a concern at all about how the team was actually able to get leads and not hold leads Thursday and Saturday?
No, not really. I think this league is really you can't sit back anymore. This league doesn't allow you to sit back.
Sure, just like you to Vegas.
Yeah, as soon as your team sits back and says, "Hey, we're just going to manage this the last 20 minutes of this game or whatever," you're on the slide to lose the game. I would say, you know, 10 years ago, even less, 5 years ago, you could probably sit back a little bit more. But the rules that are in place now don't allow you to, and it becomes a 60-minute workman-like game, no matter who you're playing. And if you're not willing to you know, work and execute and make good decisions on the ice, doesn't matter who you are in this league. You could be the best team in the league. You could lose to the 32nd place team in the league very easily. So it is it's a humbling league. It's the most workmanlike league, I think, in all sport.
How do you approach the next 8 games leading into the playoffs? You don't have a playoff spot yet, but it does look like you're headed to the playoffs as you guys sit in playoff position, and yet knowing that when things go well, it's like a whole new season starts if you end up making the playoffs. Is there kind of a mentality or a mindset now that the point streak's over for how to get ready for the playoffs?
Well, I think number one is that you got to recognize, you know, since the point streak has ended, you know, and you got to sort of look at that Arizona game, and that's the one that you want to let's just move forward. But you start building on the Colorado game. You know, did we have a good start? Yes. Did we match their energy? Yes. Did we match the physicality? Yes. Did we manage the puck? Yes. Did we control their top players? Yes. We did all that, and it changed when we had the penalty. So how did we respond after that penalty? Not great. We did an absolutely fantastic job on the penalty kill for a
3.5 minutes.
Yeah, 3.5 minutes, and I was like, this is as good as I've seen our penalty kill all year in terms of, you know, frustrating teams, being on top of it, doing that, and then all of a sudden they score. And it just turned right there because it was that moment. It's the moment after a goal. It's like anytime and it was the things that we did early in this year where we would score a goal and then the next shift we'd give it right back. Those type of things that sort of were in our game early, that sort of crept in that Colorado game where we scored and then we get a lead, and even in Arizona, it started to creep in where we got the lead and then we stopped playing. For a couple shifts, they get some momentum and then we have trouble getting it back. So just understanding that the next shift after a goal, positive or negative, is probably the most important shift you're going to have that night, because that decides where the momentum's going to go. And I think we've learned that all year. Unfortunately, we just forgot it for hopefully a brief time here.
See, I keep thinking about the playoffs when I come back to this stuff, because I think about the Arizona game. Like the Vegas game, I think the team kind of started off maybe not
great.
at the same level Vegas was at. Then had to come back. Unbelievable comeback. Then they start off 2-0 at Arizona, and it's like, oh, wow, we're good. And then as soon as that happens, now Arizona's back in the game, and it kind of feels like you're chasing an uphill battle at that point. And I think about that from the standpoint of, okay, in the playoffs, it must be so hard to win a game and maintain that same level of desperate energy, knowing that the other team is sitting there saying, if we lose tonight, we're going to lose this series, so they're going to play like their hair's on fire. I keep thinking about, like, where's the learning experience for being able to manage that in the playoffs?
Well, I think what you learn is to, in the playoffs, and I would say this, the best way to describe it is that all the experiences that you have during the year, the ones that create chaos on the bench, create chaos on the ice, create uncertainty, all those things that are created during the year, how you respond to them, you have to almost take a deep breath. It's like when there's disaster. We have the storm outside today a little bit, and it can create some disaster weather. But you see people who, in tough situations, the people that are most calm and most rational are the ones that sort of figure it out. The ones that run around with their hair on fire and all that they usually are the ones that are in trouble. So I think, and I'm using a little bit of an analogy, but to me, being calm when all else is chaotic and all that is the key to have success, because you don't panic. You know when if you've been on the bench when a team's got you on, there's got you in your heels a little bit, and the whole bench is sort of standing up. Get it out, get it out, get it out. The team, they usually get scored on because there's too much panic and there's too much indecision and there's no calmness and poise. The teams that can be in those moments and be poised and confident that they've got it, even though they're under siege a little bit, they're the ones that will have success in the playoffs.
Barry Trotz was presented by Gary Force Acura. I was watching the game Thursday night, and Cody Glass gets put into the lineup, Beauvillier gets taken out, and immediately he assists on a goal for Zucker. Then he assists again on a goal for Zucker. And I'm like, Cody Glass is back. Then it dropped off a little bit, after 2 assists right out of the gate. What did you think of him going back into the lineup? And how do you kind of see maybe that battle for that last spot between him and Beauvillier and what they offer and kind of what you want out of both guys?
Well, I think both guys are gonna be needed for us. Number one, we got to get to the playoffs. But if we can get there, I think they both have a lot of value for us, because I know I have not gone through a playoff series where you haven't lost someone in your personnel, be it your defense or on the forward group, and you need people to step up, and they have to step up sometimes not playing in long periods of time. The example, Cody, we're on a big run and Cody's not in the lineup, and then so he's got to prepare, he's got to be in the right mindset, and then he gets in the lineup and you're expected to produce. You find ways, the confident, he had the right mindset, made some plays, and now he's getting some confidence. Now Anthony came out, and Anthony wasn't playing, I would say, particularly poor, but I think he's struggling to find his way a little bit with the new system, struggling a little bit with the maybe the production that he's got some chances but hasn't produced yet, and sometimes that plays into a player, especially coming to a new organization. Sure. And so sometimes just you're out of it for a second, and then you jump back in and you have some success. But you can't look at just total production, because you can be very productive as a player in the National Hockey League on a line, and you may not ever score a point, but you could be really effective and that. So that's something that I know when I had Anthony when he was young, that was one of our first conversations, that there's probably 50 ways you can help a team and not necessarily worry about the scoring and the assists. We want that, but at the same time, when it's not happening, you can help in so many ways. So I think that's something that it'll resonate with him, and he'll get back in. And we have Jared Dolan Anderson. He's practicing every day, and he hasn't got a chance to get in. I think he's got some value, and he can help us down the road. So we have to make sure that we're getting those guys ready, and you got to jump in and get it done when your number's called.
What do you think about the mixing and the matching defensively? You know, Stastny's entered the lineup, then exited for a couple games and is back in. Carrier missed the game on Saturday. Lazon's back in there. Fabro playing at altitude. Barry's been in and out. What do you kind of think of how you guys have moved the defense around it and how guys have fit in?
Well, we've had to. All those players that you mentioned were injured.
Mm-hmm.
They missed very, stretches of time. Stastny was hurt. Fabro was hurt. Lazon was hurt. They missed some time. And various and the other guys had to jump in. So I thought usually what happens when the guys get an opportunity to jump in, they've done a really good job, especially in the first game. They've really done a really good job. But then the second and third game, their play either started to slide a little bit. So it's just maintaining the level of play that they come in with in their first game.
Barry Trotz is with us. So last week, you guys made a signing at the minor league level in which the contract is going to start next year, but the kid can play at Milwaukee this year. And I do wonder if that maybe is a sign that there might be some guys coming up from Milwaukee as you guys prepare for, and if you eventually head into the playoffs, but knowing that Milwaukee still has their season going on at the same time, how do you balance that? And what and who are you kind of looking for at Milwaukee? Say, hey, this could be a guy who could play a role here if we need him.
Well, I think the natural ones, my first instinct before I would say we were more of a seller, was the reason I wanted Parsonen and Tomasino to play down there is they would play bigger roles, more minutes, thinking that we were going to probably sell off some pieces and they would have to be a big part of the, coming in, and I wanted to prepare them correctly, and then we went on a big run and we had to change plans a little bit. Those are the first two guys that come to mind. I mean, they've performed at this level and they've done a fairly decent job, and they're familiar with it. That would be the first group of guys. I would think obviously the Delgazos that have come up, and you got guys like McEwen and Gravel if we get deep into our, I'll say, our depth on defense. Ashcroft, if something goes down, is a guy that would come up for sure. So there are some pieces there. And then I think what you're going to see is that, guys like, Schaefer and Sveshkov and Kemmel, they're probably just the next tier because they haven't had any of those games yet. Mm-hmm. And to throw someone into the playoff mix real quick that hasn't even played an NHL game, that's a big ask for guys sometimes. For some guys, they're just numb to it, and they actually do okay. Other guys, it's just overwhelming. So you don't know until you throw them into the fray. But I would say the original guys that I talked about, those are probably the natural call-ups right away.
So last one for you, Barry Trotz is with us. How has been, from a management standpoint, coaching the coach? Because Andrew Burnett has experience as a coach, and it's kind of shocking to me how even when he's an assistant coach in places, the teams win more games than they do when he's not there. But he does have the experience in Florida. But this is kind of his first year as the head coach with no strings attached to it. And this team has gone through a lot of ups and a lot of downs, and you've seen it all, and you've done it all from that standpoint. So what has been kind of the pointers, the interactions, given that you want to be, I would assume, hands-off to let him do his job, but also the experience that you have that maybe he doesn't have from that position?
Well, I think number one, I look at it as if I was in his shoes, and I think one of the best things that can happen for I'll say, Bruno's he has experience and he's played and all that is I coached a long time, and for me to just let the coaching part go a little bit so that he can have the confidence to run his program. Mm-hmm. Last thing you want is someone looking over going, why are you doing this? How come you're doing this?
Sure.
I think you find people grow and you give them give them the reins, you support them. If it goes off track and they need some help, I think I'm the first guy that would be there for him. But he's done a really good job managing, and we've been on the same wavelength in our conversations. I think he's been receptive to, if I said to him, hey, we're going to, keep this guy and this guy here. And so you just got to work with them. I'm not going to go get anybody yet. I don't know where we are yet. And he goes, okay, no problem. If we wanted to move a guy, say send him down to get more time, he would say, I think I can keep growing him here, or you know what, I think you're right. It should be time that we get him down there. So we have that dialogue all the time in that. But when it comes to the coaching part, unless I'm asked, I'm not overbearing any way, but I'm there to support. And there's times when I'm probably fairly calculated when I go down, because I've been there sure. Because you're emotional and you go down there, and if I say something, and it's happened to me in the past, and it's not necessarily management, it could be a scout in town, it could be whoever, and they can't read the room, and they say something and they go, why don't you do this, and you start exploding because you're going like, you don't know, you weren't down there, you don't know exactly, and it becomes it really sets you off. So I usually go down, I read the room a little bit, but I usually try to take the game from a non-emotional standpoint and go, I really like this part of our game, we just got to clean this up. If we do, we'll be fine, and try to be supportive as much as I can. So I haven't had a situation where I've had to go down and go, this does make no sense. Everything that they've done down there, they've done with a lot of thought, and they've done it with purpose. And if you do that, and the players are improving, and you're getting a consistent performance. And early we weren't, because that's part of the maturation of a team. But you saw it as we got deeper, and when they mattered more, when it really mattered right after the All-Star break, after a slow start, they've been good. And you have to recognize that, because the run that they went on, those don't happen very often, and they're rare. And they take a lot of energy and a lot of determination, a lot of you run those gas tanks pretty low, so now it's time to get those gas tanks refilled, and let's get ready to get in the playoffs, which we have to do. And then once we get in the playoffs, then all bets are off, because it is a new season.
So I said last one, I lied. Quickly, do you at this point have in your head a team or two that you'd rather play in the playoffs and a team that you'd rather not? And I'm not going to ask you who.
Yeah.
So just yes or no. Okay. I can't ask you. I'm not going to ask you.
No, you can. I do.
Who do you want to play?
I'm not going to tell you who I'm going to want to play, because that goes social. But there's teams that I think we match up better with, that I think if you want us to go deep, there's certain teams that I think we would have a better shot at going deep at, just because I think the way we're built, what we can do, how we can do it, how we can neutralize some of the things that they do. There is some teams. There's no question. If you ask any coach, they're going to say, "Nah, they're all the same. We're going to have to go through them." They're just lying. We all lie that way. You do. There's certain teams that you match up better. Like, I wouldn't want to play the Arizona Coyotes, because they just keep beating us. And
you hate that building.
No, I don't love that building for sure. And they'll get that rectified. I'm sure the league will do that. But there's certain teams I think that you match up better with, and that's always the case. And but there's only one or two of those.
Good luck getting Dallas in the first round of the playoffs. I said it, not him. Just saying. Barry Trotz.
That's nice and close. They're a good rival.
Barry Trotz, as always, is presented by Gary Force Acura. Barry, thank you so much. Good luck tonight against Boston, and the rest of the way, we'll talk to you Tuesday.
All right, sounds good.
Yep, Barry Trotz on our show. We roll along. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 through the game. Stillman and Company live out at Bridgestone Arena. So Sean Henry's mad now, team CEO. He's mad because he thinks that I'm not his friend anymore because I got Barry Trotz now that comes on the program and whatnot. And look, man, as long as the Predators keep winning, I'll be happy. You know, with everybody out there, as long as you keep winning, I'll be happy. That's how I feel about it. 615-737-1025. So I did ask Barry there at the end about wanting to play a team in the playoffs. And so I've got a thought on this. And we'll get to that coming up next. 615-737-1025 here on the Stillman and Company program, 1025, 1063 The Game. We'll get to your phones too. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063 The Game here on our program live at Bridgestone Arena. So I got a little bone to pick. First of all, I said to Barry Trotz, is there a team you want to play? And he said yes. Were you surprised by that, Ian?
I mean, I don't know. I think that's probably the, obvious answer, but you don't hear most coaches or GMs kind of admit that.
See, here's the problem, is that everybody's moving around so much in these standings these last 8 games.
It's impossible to tell anyways.
Yeah, I know who the 8 teams in the Western Conference are going to be. I'm sorry, St. Louis, but you're not making the playoffs. I know who the 8 teams are going to be. It's going to be Dallas, Colorado, Winnipeg, Nashville, LA, Vegas, Edmonton, and Vancouver. Period. So I know that one. And then after that, I just don't know where they're going to play, who they're going to play, when they're going to play, how they're going to play. I get the vibe that Dallas is the team that I would like to see. Now, I do have a question, though, for all the Predators fans out there. And maybe this is just, I talked about this on Friday after the Predators lost to Arizona, and how it was like Preds Twitter had this just massive meltdown. And I'm like, guys, they're not going to win every single game the rest of the way. They're not going to go 16-0 in the playoffs. And all these games, right? Vegas, it was a controversial call that you got in your favor. You won the game. Colorado, it was a controversial call against you, which I actually thought was the right call, that went their way, and it cost you. That's the line between these teams. And so I have to ask the fans a serious question, which is, how can so many people, how can so many people be mad about 2 games after the team was unstoppable for 18? It's going to happen. You're not going to win every game. And so then I turn my attention to tonight. And I'm like, okay, this is the one where I said I didn't give them a pass for Saturday. I wish they had won on Saturday, and I was bothered by Saturday again, because if that had been a playoff situation where there's a 5-minute penalty and you don't kill it off, and then Fabro can't clear the zone and everything else, if all of that happens and you lose a playoff game, now you got to make it up. Tonight, you're playing a legitimate cup contender. I mean, the Boston Bruins are legitimately one of, 4 or 5 teams in the Eastern Conference who might have a shot at the cup. Boston, Carolina, New York, Toronto? No, I have to probably see it to believe it.
I kind of count them, yeah.
Get excited about Toronto. Florida, I mean, those are the teams. Now, we saw when they matched up with Florida, and we saw they went on the road, and that they kicked the crap out of them. And I said, okay, you're a cup contender, because that is a game against a legitimate cup team. Tonight is a game against a legitimate cup team. So I just want us all to remember, if they win tonight, then you lost to Colorado, a cup contender. You won this, you're back to even. Then after that, the schedule kind of gets easy. And I don't want to say that out loud, but it is reality that the schedule kind of gets easy. And you should win on Thursday, and that will essentially put you into the playoffs for sure. And then after you're for sure in the playoffs, then it's kind of like, okay, we just have to play the waiting game for 2 weeks in order to get into the playoffs. And then it's like, we said, I've experienced this way too many times where whatever happens during the regular season doesn't necessarily carry over into the playoffs. It's like there's a week off, and then the playoffs happen, and then it's like, again, a whole new season, and it's really just locked in on this one opponent. But tonight is a Stanley Cup measuring stick game. During the run, you were a Stanley Cup contender. When you beat Vegas, they are a cup contender. You beat them twice. You beat Winnipeg. You beat Colorado. You beat Florida. And you won those games rather handedly. Now the run's over. You played a cup contender Saturday, you lost. You got a cup contender tonight. And my God, Ian, there are a lot of Bruins fans in the building tonight.
Yeah, there always are. These games, a lot of these teams take this advantage and come down to Nashville for the weekend.
Well, not only that, I would think, too. I think the weather's going to be fine for tonight. I think there were all these concerns about the weather. I think, and I'm not a meteorologist or anything like that, but I actually think that the weather is going to cooperate tonight, which I think is probably a good thing. But I just think that a lot of these Boston fans are probably from out of town, so they've been staying, downtown, and so it's easy. I'll walk a block and go right into the building, whereas a lot of people, in town, it's like, man, I got to drive all the way out in order to get to the game. But I don't know what the weather situation is going to be like, but it does seem like the weather's going to cooperate tonight. There's going to be a lot of Bruins fans here, which, again, it's the playoffs. And if there's a cup final, there will be a lot more Preds fans than there will be Bruins fans. But there'll still be some Bruins fans there. I just look at all these games like they're playoff games. I look at this like it's a cup game. Like, where do you stack up against this team that is going to compete for the cup? And I know that, like, Colorado lost to Montreal last week, and they lost to some freaking Scarbini the other night. Who was it, Buffalo?
Was it? No, I don't think it was Buffalo, but they did lose to another team.
They lost to a Scarbini.
I can't remember off the top of my head.
I can't, whatever. Those don't, those aren't those, like, measuring stick games where Colorado,
Columbus.
Scarbini.
Yeah, at Columbus, they lost 4-1.
Yeah, they took a smoke break. That one I'm not going to say is that big of a deal one way or another. Donovan texts in. Our phone lines, by the way, are driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. Donovan says, Jared, when you said good luck getting Dallas in the playoffs to Barry Trotz, did you mean that's who? Donovan says we, but I'm thinking that who you want the Predators to play. Talking about me. Yes. If I had to pick, well, I would play Winnipeg first, but you're not going to play Winnipeg. So if it's really between what I think it is, Dallas, Vancouver, or Colorado, I would prefer Dallas first. And the one thing that I think's a big deal that I heard Robbie Stanley yesterday poo-poo, by the way. And he was talking about me, and he didn't say it. And Robbie, if you're listening, I know you were talking about me when you said this. Robbie was talking about the idea of going to the west, to the Pacific side, and ending up having to do all the travel. And Robbie was like, well, if you get sent to the Pacific, Robbie was like, well, if you get sent to the Pacific side, then you have to travel over there. And that's a big deal to some people. It's not a big deal to me. And I'm just kidding. I say that with all the love in the world. But so Robbie said that yesterday, and I'm like, he's talking about me. When he's like, some people care about this travel. I don't, but some people do. He's talking about me. I do. I care about the West Coast travel. And not only do I care about that, but I also care about Edmonton. And every hockey person, every Pierre out there says I shouldn't worry about Edmonton because Edmonton has no depth. They choke in the playoffs. Their goaltending stinks. And yet all I ever do is watch Edmonton play the Predators and win 9-3 every time they play. So pardon me, but I don't want any part of the team the Predators don't ever beat. So that eliminates choices. Leaves us with Dallas. Plus, Vengen says that Jake Ottinger stinks this year. Now, here's my one thought on that. He would know better than I do. He's got the glasses and he knows all this stuff. So when it comes to Ottinger, what I've learned about the playoffs in the NHL is that you can have a goalie who stinks for the whole year. But if the goalie doesn't suck himself, sometimes you can have a goalie who stinks for the entire year and, is a terrible goalie and gets hot in the playoffs. But if you've got a goalie who's a good goalie and he's stunk for the entire year, chances are he's going to get hot at some point because, again, it's going to balance out to the mean, and that goalie's going to catch fire in the playoffs. And that's what happened to Pekka. I'm not saying that I can just assume that's what Ottinger's going to do, but it does worry me a lot that that's what's going to happen. So, yes, to answer your question, when I said good luck getting Dallas, do I mean that's who I want them to play? Yes. I have no idea who Barry Trotz wants them to play in the playoffs, even though Barry Trotz said there is a team that he wants to play in the playoffs, and he wouldn't say who it was. Ian, what'd you think?
He said there was one or two. He said there's one or two of those teams, but there's only one or two.
But there's only 3 choices.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, is Vancouver going to win the Pacific for sure?
I thought so. I haven't been keeping up with the...
They're 5 points ahead of Edmonton. So, technically Edmonton could win the Pacific. Dallas is 3 points ahead of Colorado.
Go Dallas.
So Colorado could still win there. So you're talking Dallas, Colorado, probably not Winnipeg, Vancouver, or Edmonton. So there's 4 teams probably right there that are options.
They're not going to... If they play Edmonton in the first round, a part of me will die inside.
It's possible.
I will turn full Chicago Blackhawk 2017 Jared if they get Edmonton just because they never beat Edmonton. Every time I see those guys play, they score 15 goals each. What's crazy is that, like, McDavid's one of the best players in the world, if not the best player in the world, in that group with Matthews and everybody else.
Oh, he's the best.
You'd say he's better than Matthews? Matthews pretty good. I mean, I watched them play Washington on TNT a couple weeks ago, and they dropped the puck, and he went right to the net and scored.
Yeah. No, Matthews is good. He's got 60 goals again.
Pasternak coming in here tonight might be up there. He's not as good as McDavid, but he's up there. But again, he's the best player in the world. If you only watch them play the Predators, you'd think Draisaitl's best player in the world. So maybe there is something to that. Predators game day is coming up next. Hey, Tennessee Men's Clinic, want to talk about them. Guys, you've put this off way too long, and it's time to get it done and move forward with your sex life, and the Tennessee Men's Clinic is the leader in bedroom confidence. The reality is pills often quit working, and guys start making excuses for not coming to bed. Did you know that studies show that men will be more irritable and argumentative before bed just to avoid failing at intimacy? Now, I don't know that, but apparently the studies do say that. And yes, I know you all hate going to the doctor, but the Tennessee Men's Clinic was created in 2014 to take care of guys just like you. For a decade, the urologists and providers at the Tennessee Men's Clinic have helped guys with ED and weight loss, and now they even offer aesthetic enhancements and cosmetic procedures. Their ED and weight loss treatments truly change lives with no surgery, and they are seeing success rates as high as 90%. They specialize in seeing guys who think they're out of luck regain hope, and they can be successful in the bedroom and beyond. They even offer same-day or next-day appointments. So it's time to feel amazing and hit your goals this year. Stop thinking about it. Get in there. Call 615-208-9090. That's 615-208-9090. Or go to TennesseeMen'sClinic.com to book an appointment. That's TennesseeMen'sClinic.com. Stillman and Company, it's Predators Game Day presented by TJ Anderson Homes, a Benchmark Realty online at tjandersonhomes.com. TJ's my real estate agent. Get your home seen, heard, and sold with TJ. Predators tonight taking on the Boston Bruins. The Bruins are 43-17-15, good for 101 points. They are a bona fide cup contender. The Predators are 43-27-4, good for 90 points. We start with the coach's take. Here's Andrew Burnett.
I think 5-on-5, a little loose in Arizona. I thought, in the Colorado game, didn't give up a whole lot. And there'd be nights that they go in. I mean, we had probably no different than some of the games we won. I mean, that's just hockey sometimes.
I always love how when they lose, Andrew Burnett's like, oh, no, it's not a big deal, except for that, one game where they lost to Dallas and they canceled the Vegas trip. But then other times when they lose, it's like, well, that was no different than the games we won. And no, it was different. And so tonight against Boston, who's a legitimate cup contender, I'm going to say this. I need to see a little something that reminds me of the team that was on the 18-game run. The run's over. When you were on the run, you beat these Stanley Cup contending teams. You beat Vegas twice. You beat Winnipeg. You beat Colorado. You beat Florida. And you won those games handedly. I would like to see tonight against a Stanley Cup contender in the Bruins, a legitimate one. I'd like to see you pull through, win that game, and then keep your spot, 6 points up with a game in hand on the Blues, and even more so on LA, which means that you're probably going to have to, unfortunately, go to Vancouver, but we'll keep our eyes on that as well. Max has you up next with the pregame show, where I'm sure they'll be breaking all of these things down, Max. Maybe a little bit, some. Shakes his hand a little bit. That's it for us. We're out of here. Stillman & Company. We'll see everybody tomorrow at 2.